All right, everybody, before we go any further into the video, I want to take a minute to tell you guys about a wonderful app called Sleeper, a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat about sports in real time with other users. You can get all kinds of scores, sports news, and sports alerts with blazing fast speed. And of course, you can play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. So enjoy sports with other people in a community. Download the Sleeper app today and remember to use the promo code SBN, that is SBN, for up to a $100 match on your first deposit. And they also have a free $20 entry right now, no deposit required. So pair those two up. Terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states and growing. Check out the Sleeper app and have fun with sports this year. All right, everybody. Good afternoon. What is going on? I know what's going on. I'm a Seahawks fan. I've been following this team all year, same as you. And what is going on right now is pretty darn sweet. We got an NFC Championship game appearance on deck. We are going maybe just one game away from the Super Bowl, guys. One game away from the Super Bowl. And it's a pretty sweet feeling. It's been a while since we've been here. It's been about 10 years, 11 years. Sometimes it felt like it was never going to come back, but we are here. And I am here. I am Brendan. He is here. He is Brandon. And we're going to talk a little bit about these Seahawks. What are you doing, Brandon? How are you doing today?
And I'm living large and enjoying life. This is a dream of a season, Brendan, and it becomes even more so the more this year goes along. The opponents we take down, the road we've taken to get here, and now being right on the edge of going to a Super Bowl. It's just, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. It's a very, very special season. Very, very special circumstances here. It's the second year under a new head coach. You know how often it's been that a second-year head coach wins a Super Bowl? It's happened, Brian Billick did it. It happened with Mike Tomlin. Other than that, man, you usually don't break through this fast. And here we are.
And both those comparisons you made are two guys that, did get to inherit, I think, at least from his talent standpoint. I mean, Tomlin just fully with the culture had gone on with Cower. Not that they hadn't done a good job on their own with it, but that they had both kind of inherited stuff that was already kind of a machine when they walked in, which wasn't as much the case, I think, for McDonald when he was coming in.
Mm-hmm. So we're almost there. And we got a lot to talk about today. And I know we're all tired of talking about these Rams. We're tired of talking about these Niners. We talk about them twice a week. Twice a month, it feels like lately. Been talking about these two teams a lot, but we're going to do it again. And I do think we do have some new things we can get into here with these squads. I do think there's some stuff with not just these upcoming Rams, who of course are going to be the main focus of the show today, but also with the game that we just played against the 49ers. There is going to be some new stuff to get into. There's always new wrinkles, always new considerations, even though we feel like we know these teams pretty darn well.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so obviously the Niners game was 5 days ago now. We've all had plenty of time to process it. I'm sure you've talked about it a lot on your channel. I've talked about it a lot on my channel. But let's spend a little bit of time on that one, because it was such a special game, such a unique experience to play a good team in a playoff game and beat them effectively in 13 seconds, beat them by 5 touchdowns. So tell me what you're taking away from that 49ers game as we head forward.
It's just you got a buzzsaw meeting a failing beast, so to speak, in the Niners. This is a team that just is obviously on the edge of running out of gas with where they were injury-wise and the road that they took to get to where they got in this season. And this team has played a lot of games through deep into the postseason through recent years. So some of them being a little bit tired is maybe understandable with an older roster. That was a little bit of it. And of course, the other part of it was the Seattle Seahawks are just running so red hot right now. And all phases are really cooking. The team's playing really well together. They were understanding collectively what it takes to win as a football team, and they're just leading into that without ego, without pride. Just, okay, what does it take for me on my end to have to pick up the slack here? Okay, what does it take for me on my end to pick up slack? And everybody's just conjoined in that way, which is very much a necessity if you want a championship type team. But the fact that it has come into be, and it's something that we can't maybe pinpoint exactly where It started to really come into form. Maybe it's that halfway after the year. Maybe it was after that Ram game. It sort of really locked in at that point. But they've utilized the same methodology and approach in these games to win these games. And I think that's the part that's got me so excited about this season as much as anything is that this is, they don't have to come up every week and kind of find a new way to win, Brendan. They don't have to go, okay, well, this week we got to go hyper blitz, and then we have to throw the ball over the football field. And then this week we got to run the ball a lot, but then we got to dial back and they can kind of just be who they are. And it's going to be good enough that they can go out there and beat a team, beat the doors off a team like they did the Niners.
Right. And obviously the Niners are very beat up right now, but don't sleep on them. About a month ago, they beat the Bears. They beat the Eagles in Philadelphia the week before we played them. That was not a bad team. It was not a 100% team. That was a team that had proven they were still one of the best teams in the conference. So there's absolutely something you can take away from beating them down.
I agree. I think as well, the fact that you held that offense to the points you did, I think you've seen this stat. What is it like? Shanahan's like 200 games or something like that. And he's been held under, 6 points like 3 times. And 2 of those games in the last 2 weeks that those games have come. That's for a Niner offense that wasn't bad this year, Brendan, to your point. And when you look at the injuries, it's more about the defensive side of the ball than it's the offensive side of the ball as far as the injury stuff comes up. Yeah, Kittle and Ayuk out, but that's kind of about almost it, really. And you had almost your full purpose and run there. So to do that to Shanahan when so few have, to do it to Shanahan in a year where the offense was good, just shows you how impressive this defense is and this team is.
Yeah. And I mean, Ayuk's basically persona non grata, and now he doesn't exist. We may as well pretend that he's not a real person because he's basically not. I don't even know what to say about all that, by the way. That could be a show on its own.
You get your money. I mean, this is the thing I'm actually kind of surprised we don't see more from players across the board that, guys become multimillionaires. And it's that whole, like that scene in, FU money from the Wahlberg movie where what's his face?
The gambler.
He's telling about FU money. Yeah, the gambler. He's telling about FU money. And it's like, you always wonder about these players that get to that spot of like, FU, I don't have to do it. I got my money now. And I wonder why we don't get kind of more of them. Like we don't get more sometimes of the super early retirements after guys have signed that one paycheck and then they're just like, peace, I'm out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it does happen occasionally, but I guess a lot of these guys love football, and when they don't, you can really tell.
You really tell. And why, to your point on that, you got to then look for guys that love ball and that the talent's great, talent's good. But if you have a guy that's not loves ball, that this is just his job, there's only going to be so much you're going to get out of that.
Mm-hmm. So to talk about that game, it was such a dominating game that it's kind of almost a little bit difficult to find specific things you want to discuss. One thing, though, is how did you come out of that game feeling about Sam Darnold's health? Because that was the big story all week, or at least for the last couple of days of the week with the oblique injury. Was it going to affect him? Was it going to limit him? Did you come out of that game feeling like he was in any way, shape, or form limited physically?
No, I think it's just people are super sensitive at this time of the year to any of the reports that come out. This came out yesterday with the left tackles not practicing and people wanted to freak out and clutch their pearls over that. This is not just the playoffs. It's the end of the line at the playoffs. Guys are going to get on the field. Guys are going to play. And, you put a shot of Toradol in it and you can play. That's the way that works. So, it's not really surprised. I think they were just being careful, and everything Sam said with it wasn't like it came up and, caught him hard as it could, those oblique injuries. It seemed to be just something like he sensed something on the early part of practice and was just really careful with it, as much as it was some major injury that was really impacting his ability.
Yeah, I think when you look at the JSN touchdown, he had one really tight window throw to Cooper Kupp in, I think, the third quarter. And then he also launched it like 55 yards down the field to Shaheed. It was incomplete, but you look at those throws, it doesn't seem like there's a problem there. It feels like the normal Sam Darnold to me when I look at those 3 throws in particular. And maybe you could even say the 2nd and 20 conversion to Cooper Kupp. It's like this is the Sam Darnold that we've come to know.
Yeah, the cup throw was incredible. He's throwing that from the far hash to the other side of the hash, across the field to the out of bounds marker. That's a 45 yard throw he's got to make in the air on a line, and he made it well. So I think he's fine. It's that time of year where everybody's gonna be hurting a little bit somewhere, and you just got to kind of knuckle down and toughen it out in 2 more games, and you got a Super Bowl. So.
Mm-hmm. Right, like just as an example for this upcoming week, and we'll get to this in a second, but I think Stafford is much more negatively affected by his injuries that he's going through right now than Darnold is with his. Like Stafford's got the finger. I think that's clearly affecting him. I think he's got some other stuff going on there. Like to me, Stafford is clearly the more wounded of the two quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think that's fair, even just for the finger alone. And we know going back to even with Russ, what that can do as far as affect your ability to throw the ball with the finger, and how hard that is if you can't grip the ball all the way around, especially when you're outside in the elements. So I think it probably was a factor. It gets hard to say for sure with Stafford because it seemed like the wind and the snow and the weather there in Chicago was definitely affecting how the throws were coming out for a bit of both quarterbacks. But then also with Caleb, he can kind of be inaccurate on a good day. So you go, well, is that, it's like, is it Caleb being inaccurate and then the finger of Matt on some of these throws too? Or is it the weather to that side of it? It got a little bit hard to determine there, but definitely I don't think he's anywhere near, at 100% at this point in time. And when you're that old of a quarterback, that's one of the things that they'll talk about is it's not the arm strength that leaves them. Sometimes it's not even the mobility for whatever they have that leaves them. It's that they end up not being able to recover from the injuries, because you're going to get those injuries sustained through the year, and they end up taking a long time, these injuries, even the nagging ones, to kind of get kicked through.
Yeah. That's why I actually thought the Bears were going to win that game. It's like when it's 10 degrees out and somebody's got to go shovel the driveway, who do you send out? The 40-year-old guy or the 22-year-old guy? You're sending out the 22-year-old guy out there.
Right. 44-year-old guy get a heart attack.
Exactly. So I other than that, like what else is there really to say? Like everything about this game was so dominant. It's hard to pick little things out. Like the running game was there. Walker, maybe the best game of his career. You've got the defense. Okay. There's one thing I want to talk about with this defense. One of the narratives coming out of this game from just people in general was the Niners offensive line was terrible. Brock Purdy was getting pressured every play. He was running for his life. To me, the offensive line of the Niners actually played really well, and Purdy was getting pressured a lot because he was holding onto the ball forever and scrambling around. So what were your thoughts on that? Because I was really surprised to see how many people were like, oh, Purdy's got no help. He's getting crushed every play. The offensive line's getting abused. I was like, I don't think so. I think on a lot of these plays, I think he's doing it to himself with how long he holds onto the ball.
Yeah, you're on it with this. The time to throw for Brock Purdy in this last game was over 4 seconds. The highest time to throw rate in the NFL this year is 3.2 seconds with Caleb Williams. So he would not only blow out the number one for a full year at holding the ball that long, it might even be a record at 4 seconds. I mean, that is incredibly a long time in the pocket. And if you hold the ball a long time, you're eventually going to have pressure like that bearing down on you. So I agree with you. I don't think it was necessarily instant pressure. I think it was Brock trying to make a play. He wasn't seeing anything down the field. And the reason he's holding the ball is because, as you've seen with the pressure rates shown in this game, the Seahawks were able to get the pressure, but they just stayed in front four. They blitzed at almost a league low rate, like 10% or something in this game. You just went front four. And they've been doing that with the Niners the past couple of weeks. We're just like, we're going to drop 7 back, and all you're going to get is a front four, and good luck with your arm strength finding a window that you can throw into. And Brock did, but I think that's what caused him to hold the ball, is he's just not seeing a lot of separation out there on the routes. More, getting back to your point, than it being about the pass rush being, so ferocious.
Right. And I think if you go back now, basically 2 months, this pass rush has not been the same, I feel like. And I think that on Pro Football Reference, we have something like 7 straight games of single-digit pressures. So how concerned are we about that? Do you think they can whip something up for 1 or 2 games here at the end of the season? Or is this just not a very good pass rush right now?
No, I think it's not that at all. I think that what's happened is that Mike McDonald's scheme is going to be one that's built to, when the pass rush is going at its best, to me, it's going to run some stacked boxes, simulated pressures. You're going to get a little bit of blitzing. He's going to be a middle of the road kind of blitzing guy when he wants to run at his best. He's gone down to kind of league minimum blitz level. And he talked about this yesterday in the press conference, that, they walked in this season anticipating they were going to get blitz a little bit more, but the players have been more in their ear about, hey, let us run the front four, let us run some of our games up front. We can get the job done on our own up here. And so some of this is the players, I think, driving a little bit of this. But as well, I think it just comes down to, when you look at the games over the back half of the schedule, there's a lot of blowouts in there. There's a lot of you up on teams into the third, fourth quarter and really putting them away. Now, in those kind of games, do you want to take risks? Do you want to take blitzes? Do you want to stack up fronts? Do you want to bring the house, or do you more sit in the front four and drop back into coverage? So I guess just to come back around on this, like we can kind of get pressure, I think, anytime we really kind of want to, with dialing up a little bit of some extra heat up there, and that it can have a big effect, especially when you're running the front four like this 24/7, Brendan, because now you get the offense that's completely in the rhythm of front four, front four, front four, front four. Now when the 5 or the 6 comes, they're completely caught off guard by it. Versus the team that, let's say, is blitzing constantly, and the pass pro predetermines almost every snap. Okay, if he's coming here, let's have the protection slid over here to make sure this is taken care of, this happens here. So I don't have an issue with it myself. I think a lot of it's born out of the fact you've been up on these games and then you just kind of play a little conservative. Some of it's them trusting the front four to kind of get the job done. But I think it's always there, that lever to pull for when Mike wants to, if he runs into a game. With that said, just to kind of button this back to like the Rams, that was a little bit of an issue in that second matchup of you being unable to get any pressure generated. And certainly you don't want to be blitzing Matt Stafford in order to do that.
Right. And we're going to have a good conversation about that later, because there are some interesting things going on with that Rams team in the last couple games they played compared to the way they played all season. But it does, you watch these games and you find yourself thinking, that's why we wanted Max Crosby. I think it's pretty easy to say, yeah, we could use that money in the bank pass rusher right now. That while we have good guys, like I think DeMarcus Lawrence played a great game on Saturday, we don't have those money in the bank pass rusher guys right now.
No, we don't. And Derek Hall and Boye Mafe have not been bad, and I think they've been able to be good in style, helping to stop the run. They've been a big part of that and what they provided there. But with both of those two guys, they're not giving you anything pressure wise. Even they're not, and especially not quick pressure. And Uchenna Nwosu just does not seem to be back to the player that he was prior to the injury. Quite frankly, I don't think again, not bad to get to the spot where we're not speaking about the guy like he's completely a shell of himself. He's still a very good player and helpful in what he's bringing, but. You lose this game this upcoming week, it's going to be because you weren't able to generate the pass rush, because you can't, blitz as much. And that these guys are the guys you're going to be looking to say, okay, you got to bring it this week, buddy. I mean, Uchenna on the year's got how many? 1 sack, 2 sacks? Boya's got 2 sacks on the year?
Hall has 2. Hall and Mafe both have 2. Nwosu's actually got quite a few, but they're from earlier in the year.
Yeah, but they're like from that
7.
5-game stretch. Yeah, yeah, and so I look at that and I go, it's one where it is a little concerning for me, especially off the back of that game. And we got to get more from you guys. You're playing a lot of these times in these games up ahead. You're with the lead. You're pinning your ears back. It should be easier to rush the passer in these moments rather than tougher. But these guys just can't seem to kind of get home from the outside. At least I think interior wise it's fine, but yeah, I think outside it's been a little bit concerning. So
yeah. There's a I think the upshot is that Stafford's not going to evade pressure the way Purdy does. Like Purdy does do some stuff back there that is hard to deal with, and it's hard to finish the job on him sometimes. Not going to have to worry about that so much with Stafford, at least. Now, there are other things you have to worry about with more so with Stafford than Purdy, but at the very least, I don't think he's going to be evading a bunch of sacks in the pocket.
No, you can get to him, and he's a guy too that when the pressure gets in there, he's a guy that you'll see just dirt up a throw and not even try to risk the extension of the play, right? He'll just take the L on a play. He's perfectly happy at his age to avoid a hit if he possibly can. Not that he's gun shy, but just he'll avoid a hit if he can avoid a hit. And so, yeah, different situation there. Also different too with Bryce Young, who's also a little bit in that, Brock Purdy, I'll try to move around. So you got to do a little bit more of the mush rush, contain your pass rush lanes as you're coming up the field, that type of thing. So this has also been a little bit about the type of opponents you probably played recently too.
Right. Okay. So other than that, man, I mean, it was just a beautiful, beautiful 60 minutes of football. I don't think there's too much else that need be said. Can you think of anything else that you've got on your mind coming out of that game you want to spend a minute on?
No, other than just I think we're going to be at a point with Walker where he's really potentially a real X factor for us through the next 2 games that we're going to play in this playoffs, and if he can really realize the full potentiality of what he brings to the table as far as the player goes, we thought with him coming out, and he's gotten close, but that kind of performance last week kind of showed you what could be, and it's all coming together with the run blocking game coming together at the right time, and I think that'll be a big driving force if we get a Super Bowl in the next 2 games. We'll look on it and say a big driving force, and that was Kenneth Walker being his ultimate, most productive self.
Yeah, if he wins Super Bowl MVP though, I mean that price tag's going up quick, ain't it? Especially now.
It's already gone up, man. I'm
Yeah.
telling you that I was already on this train with thinking that before this kind of like sub breakout, the end of this season for the 1,000 yards, I was already thinking some team's going to look at him and do a lot of math on this one. It's absolutely assured at this point, and quite frankly, John should just be using the franchise tag if he can't get the deal done with this. With considering Charbonnet's injury, I just do the franchise tag, pay him on 14 million on a 1-year deal, and tell him that you won't franchise him next year if that's the thing that's going to cause him to have an issue with it, and call it a day on that. I would say, or try to find a new contract extension with him that makes sense for both team and player.
More or less than James Cook got?
Less. I'm not giving him 20 million a year. I'm
No,
not going anywhere
James
close.
Cook got 11 and a half a year.
Did he get 11 and a half? I thought he got like closer to the 20 million
I
territory.
don't think so. Hold on. James Cook contract. Let me check this real quick. 448, so 12.
Okay. Yeah, I would do that.
Mm-hmm. You think he can get that at this point? Because Spotrac has him at like 8, and there's no way that's going to hold now. But does he get up to 12? That's my question.
It's probably somewhere. He's probably splitting the difference somewhere between, inflation rates come in on this as well. And then again, too, it's just, is there the teams out there that, running the balls become more important. You could make an argument with Kenneth Walker in this draft that there's not a running back quite as dynamic as Kenneth Walker outside of a Love into day 2 or 3. You could make that argument. And a team sees that with him in that way, and then they go, okay, 2 or 3 teams start getting in there, and you get a bit of a bidding war there, and that's all it, potentially could take. It also could be that there's just one team out there that says, here, we'll give you 9 million too. So it's hard to say, but I'd say he's probably somewhere between that territory, but I would go as high as the Cook deal just because I think you finally put the offensive line in place, the scheme in place, the defense in place, the coaching in place to maximize a talent like Walker. And to get a guy like him that can get into the, if he's the number one back, 14, 15, 1,600 yard territory, along with another 300-400 yards out of the backfield catching. And I know that there's some risks and there's some injury history there, but still a pretty young player. You'll have him through his prime at that point through those 4 years. Even if he gets through 3 years of being really maximally productive through that, that's a worthwhile contract to me.
Yeah, the way he was attacking that offensive line in the game against the Niners, like that was something that I don't know if I've ever seen from him. I don't know if it was the best game of his career, but the way he was attacking forward, it felt different.
He's understood the scheme, I think, Brendan, and watching the tape, I just think this was one that was hard for both these backs initially coming from the prior schemes, gap-based centric nature, what he had with Grubb in a lot of ways last year, to this highly detail-driven scheme and what you're looking for and the keys and, just how it asks them to kind of narrow in on their choices. You don't get all the choices in the book. You got to narrow it down to 3, just pick 3. And so he's really, I think, done that to your point. I saw the same thing where it just looks like he's right now fluidly understanding what the scheme needs of him, understanding how to make the right reads. It's not perfect every time, but it's so much more improved. And of course, too, the blocking's gotten better as with this, especially the edges and how you're able to really cement down when you're getting to outside zone and being able to seal things up for those guys and actually give them a true pathway there to be able to have a hole to get through rather than everything getting clogged up.
All right, so let's take a look at some of these donos here. Peter Go Hawks with the $1.99. Biggest impact surprise player Sunday, Halani. Right, so obviously one of the only bits of bad news from Saturday's game, Zach Charbonnet tore his ACL, or we think he tore his ACL. I guess we don't know for sure, but he's going to be out for this week. He's going to be out for the Super Bowl. He's going to be out probably for a good chunk of next season as well. Pretty devastating for him going into a contract year in a year where he may have taken over the starting job if he had been healthy. But where that leaves Seattle now, they need somebody else to step up behind Walker. Obviously, I think Walker gets a little bit more action because there's no Charbonnet, but I think you're going to need somebody else to step up. And a lot of people, myself included, really hope it's Halani.
Yeah, I think Alani will be that guy that they bring in as the number 2 now. They've kind of been sitting on him in the back pocket if you have to call upon him with the, of course, Kenny McIntosh injury we also had this year at running back. So I think he does come out there. I'd probably go to AJ Barner as the guy. I think that the first matchup, you took a while to realize he was kind of there, and then once you did, you really used him well at the end of that game and got him factored in him against Landman and the linebackers, off-ball linebackers for Rams. I think that there's a lot of opening to be able to take advantage of him there. And that way, second matchup, you had the big touchdown to him in the back of the end zone. So I'll go with Barner on my surprise impact guy.
Yeah, to me, the kind of pivotal point of this game is going to be, can Darnold just take what's given to him? That's how Mac Jones plays, right? That's how Mac Jones played the Rams twice this year, and he played great in both games. He put up, I think, 50 total points over those 2 games combined. His numbers are fantastic across those 2 games, and he does it by quite simply taking what the defense gives him over and over and over again. He never gets greedy. He never overextends himself. If you play that way against the Rams, you're probably going to be okay. And that means a lot of checkdowns to A.J. Barner.
And the running backs, but both of those too. Yeah, exactly that, I would say. It's a light box team with Rams. Drop those guys in coverage, but they drop guys in coverage to depth. They want to take away your deep throwing attack. So by that means, you've got to be patient and just take that Caleb Williams throw at the end of the game. Well, what are the Rams doing on that last interception, Brennan? You see the safeties back there in depth. You see the players dropping back to depth, and he's trying to, Caleb, throw it into a very tight window deep down the field, which don't go uphill. Take the easy throws that are there in front of you. Take the positive plays. Live in the positive plays. Live in the, hey, we're going to get into 3rd and shorts. We're going to get 3rd and makeables. We're going to make this to where, they want to try to run their stunt game. They got to be worried about that on 3rd and 3 because we might run a rushing attack right where their stunts running. So it's like once you get to 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, now the Rams can bring out all their games and all their loops and all of their little, fantastical things they want to bring out. So you got to stay out of that. And the way to do that is take those positive plays. May not get you the 10, 15-yard shots down the field, but just keep the ball moving, control the clock, control the time of possession, and it'll pay off for you. I agree with you. Just stay patient, and it will work out for you against this defense.
Right, and it's so hard for these players to stay patient sometimes. They want that big play, and so do I, but especially with how beat up the Rams are with their cornerback room. They've had guys coming in and out all season long. I don't think they're going to be going one-on-one a lot on the outside, so the opportunities for big plays are going to be kind of thin.
Yeah, they don't do a lot of stacking the box, and they're not going to bring a lot of extra defenders down there necessarily if they don't have to. And so then that means you really can't, try to just, you can't try to force it. You just can't with this defense. The one thing I think that the Seahawks can maybe do a little bit stylistically to maybe give themselves some opportunities here is, those I formation looks have worked really well against the Niners in the last couple of games. Or, you get roots out there, the 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end. Kind of can simplify things down for a quarterback on the reads at that point at times, and just because you're getting base personnel from the defense, right? So you're getting the 3-4, 2 linebackers. So now just the number of bodies that are on the back end versus when you're in, 3 wide receiver looks, 11 personnel are much more reduced. So now it starts to become a little bit simplified, the numbers game. Do I get press coverage on the outside? Let's say yes. Do I now have one of those extra safeties walk down in the box to try to take care of the running game because the Rams don't quite trust the 3-4 at that point? Does that occur in a moment for Sam? Can he see that coming? Well, if then that's yes, does then that other safety end up angling his way over to JSN because they're trying to take away JSN and protect the cornerback room like you talked about, which is a little thin, missing Achille Witherspoon. Forbes is going to be a little bit beat up coming off that game. Okay, well, if that happens, press coverage, safety down, other safety goes over to JSN. If I've got a Shaheed out there one-on-one, is this now where I can tactically take that moment to go take that shot down the field? I like to see them do the Shaheed shot down the field, Brennan. I did not like to see in the last game, though, that it came on a post route where you're having him have to run through the leverage, essentially, of the defender to get to the post route versus just run the 9 route up the field and throw it to the back of the end zone, throw it underneath them, Sam, and let him go run under it. He's got to go through the defender to get that ball. I hated that route, but one-on-one, have him smoke it up. He's going to outrun anybody on the outside, and if there's no safety help out there, I think you've got to take those shots if they present themselves in this game for the points you just made about the fact that it's not going to be there readily. You're not going to have 7, 8, 9 opportunities to do so.
Yeah. And I was really surprised the Niners, it felt like they never really did anything to try to make Sam Darnold have to go make a big throw to win the game. Like, they just kind of stayed back in their typical defense. I was kept waiting, like, at a certain point, put 9 in the box. But teams really just don't want to do that. They want to live in that cover 2 shell all day right now. And I kind of feel like the Rams are not going to be different, although, again, worth keeping an eye on. But these teams, they don't want to give up that big play, even if it means they end up getting chipped to death underneath.
Well, to your point, too, these are 2 hardline defenses in their light box approach, meaning that it's 2 defenses that I would say are kind of rigid in their inability to be willing to bring those extra defenders up, like you're saying, to force a quarterback to now have to, beat us. And you mentioned Mac Jones. Well, why didn't you get up into Mac Jones as a Rams team and put him in a position of having to beat you by taking away the things that he likes to do? Wouldn't that be the better approach with that? but they didn't do that, right? Both of the two games, they just sort of said, we're just going to stay in our base deep. We're going to be who we are. And that's fine. I understand like you're married to an identity, but when your identity is going to allow easy openings for a team, it's what I love about Mike McDonald's defense, Brendan, is that this thing can be an amoeba, right? He can come into games and say, we're going to mold this around the offense and we're going to make Bryce Young beat us. We're going to make Brock Purdy, we're going to take away the run game and make Brock Purdy throw into a sea of hands on the backside in coverage. That's what I want my coaches to do. I don't want them to just line up and we're going to do what we're going to do and that's how we're going to do it, because that's predictable. And there is always an answer to every single defense. Maybe you don't have the personnel that can attack it, but there's always at least stylistically an answer in there to go after it. And so, yeah, I think you're touching on something that's very important with these two defenses, which is that they're very rigid in their structure with it. Saleh comes from the Coach Carroll tree, right? Does Coach Carroll like to stack boxes? Does he like to do simulated pressures? Does he like to run the coverages in a lot of different directions post-snap? He doesn't. And Saleh's updated some things, but it still comes from the same kind of DNA as far as how it operates.
Right. So I just don't want to come out of this game on Sunday thinking to myself, Mac Jones would have won that game. Like, if I come out of that game thinking that's going to be a tough offseason.
Yeah, and we weren't patient. I think that'd be just add on top of that, because that's what's coming with it, is that you're getting impatient. You're trying to do a little too much every play. Versus, you knew going into this game that that's not going to be an approach that's going to work, and that's where it definitely would be kind of silly and stupid a little bit to go down that road with it. But to your point, first Rams game, that's what the Seahawks tried to do. A lot of trying to push the ball down the field and trying to do a little too much and throw into the, as I say, the teeth of the defense. Don't throw into the teeth of the defense. Go for the gums.
Mm-hmm. As for Helani, I know he's a little bit smaller than Charbonnet, but I do think he has a little bit of that pop and that power that Charbonnet brings. And I think he can do some of the same stuff that Charbonnet does, obviously not as well. But Helani, I remember really liking his tape in college. I remember looking at him a lot after we signed him as a UDFA. And I actually think that this is going to work out fairly well for us. I think that if we need him, he can do the job on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a guy that's not just a kind of an also-ran dude. I think he had a great touchdown run earlier this year in the game that I think he got injured on. He's got some nice feet. He's got an ability to break tackles right around his ankles. He's got really good contact balance. He's got a little bit of juice to him. He's definitely not a bigger back in that way. And I'm going to be really watching for what maybe he can do in pass pro, because as we saw with Walker last week on, what was it, like, fourth, fifth play of the game there with Darnold, where he's got to set up in pass pro and he just lets his guy walk right past him. And we've seen that before with Walker, where that can be an issue with him. So it is a concern coming into this a little bit, where we'll be at pass pro wise with our running back. And I'd imagine that the Rams would probably a little bit there try to attack that to see if that's going to hold up for us when we do try to throw it.
Yeah. One element, though, is that Charbonnet had actually been a big disappointment in pass protection this year as well. So I do think we can probably get through without him, because I do think Helani does bring some of that pass protection stuff from Boise State. If you looked at the tape there, he was good at that stuff, I think. So okay. I'm okay with that. But I think Helani, he's like 5 pounds lighter and 2 inches shorter than Charbonnet, but plays stylistically somewhat similarly.
All right. I'm with it. I'm totally with it.
Dogzilla, thank you for the $2. Mike McDonald sounded optimistic about Cross today. Yes, this is what I've heard. Obviously, yesterday, all 3 left tackles on the Seahawks did not practice. Some people were concerned about that. Sounds like you're not. But it is notable that we go into injury report later today, hoping that at least one of those guys practices.
Yeah, you're just not wanting a guy to get injured in practice, right? Cross goes down in practice because you're having him run hard and all that other stuff. Like that's awful for a coaching staff to have that go down in that way. So right. I think that this is just them being super hyper careful.
Yeah, and it did happen with Cross last week, right? Because he got tangled up, they said, and his foot got hurt, but it was fine. So it's not like they're strangers to this, but I do have a good amount of confidence that Cross will play. Jones, I'm less sure about, because it really feels like he's physically breaking down, but we'll see about what happens today. Mm-hmm. And if we got Cross and Jones, I think we're good. And shout out to Amari Kite, by the way, who I think played well in garbage time in that Niners game. He had some real nice run blocks, but hoping we don't have to lean on him for the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, I would agree with you there that you don't want to ideally be going to him on that side of it. And it does sound like I think they'll both be fine. Cross played well last week too, so he should be all right.
Yeah, he played real well. Holy Hand Grenade, thank you for the $5. Do you think there may be a bit more pass attempts than normal with the state of our running back room, or are they solid enough to keep the 1-2 punch? I think it depends on game flow.
Yeah, I mean, it just did. Some of it depend on how you run the ball, and that's going to be a big marker, especially early on. I think you probably include some throws in there that are going to be some, manufactured kind of throws to the running backs, manufactured throws to the tight end to try to just get you some of those, equivalents to the run game that you normally have in carries. So is that a screen game? Is it, a little bit like the approach I think we had on the first Rams game, I want to say. Where we came out and first is a rollout to Barner, nice easy throw to him in space, gets to 7-8 yards. Then you come back to a screenplay to Walker, I think. After that, so it's kind of those kind of ways you're going to be. I think you're going to run a lot of screen in this game. Might be one of the games you run as much screen as ever before, to try to keep that pass rush at bay a little bit, so that they don't just go up the field constantly. So there'll be some manufactured touches in there in the pass game a little bit, but it won't be as. I think it'll be really short throws. Just get the ball in the guy's hands in space and let him try to work up the field and get a little bit extra.
Yeah, I think I like that as well. This Rams defense, I know they did pretty well against the Bears last week, but you can run on them. I think you've seen that in recent weeks. They have a better run defense than the Niners without Warner, but it's not a run defense that I look at that I just go, we're going to be bashing our head into a brick wall against.
No, it's the key comes down to on me for this is it's our nickel light box versus their base light box. So they want to go base, which is they'll do their 3-4 looks to give themselves, and it speaks to how impressive our run defense is, Brendan, that we can hold those 4 bodies on the line, and they need that extra one just to hold the line a little bit. But they're going to go with the 3-4 looks down there, and that's where it is hard to run against base on that way, even with 2 tight end sets. That does get tougher. But to your point on this, I think stands out to me with them is that they have a real opening on that defensively to where they might kind of run and run out, stop run pretty well, but they do have an opening where when it goes wrong for them, it's a 93-yard run with Bijan Robinson. It's a 55-yard run with Kenneth Walker a couple of weeks ago. Meaning that there's a home run there to be had when they have a little bit of over pursuit with one backside guy. They need everybody on that to be on their P's and Q's in that running system for it to work right, because it's not necessarily strength. It's kind of like just collectively they kind of work together to make it happen. And it has some weakness to it. Remember going back to last year and the way the Eagles went at that defense. You added Landman, right? But what else did they add to that defense from what Saquon did do it multiple times over last year? Not a lot. Puna Ford, Landman, those things have helped. Those have been improvements in helping them stop the run, but then they're not sea changes in themselves as far as personnel-wise defensively. There still remains, I think, some vulnerabilities there. Especially get Braden Fisk out there. You see Braden Fisk, you run duo at his ass all day long. I want to walk in this game. I see Braden out there. That guy is absolutely atrocious at stopping the run. They protect him every which way they can from defending the run. He will be put backwards on you can walk him back. You don't need to double team. Just attack his place and go at it, because there will be holes to be had there.
Yeah, I'm not convinced Chris Landman's a real person. That's like the perfect Madden generated name for a generated draft class back in the day.
It is.
Like Chris Landman, Jake Fisher, Chris Johnson, names like that. Like Chris Landman to me is like the perfect Madden generated name. So I'm not convinced he's real.
He might not be.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it depends. Like if we get up early, we'd probably run the ball more. If we fall behind early, then we're throwing the ball more. I think that has more to do with pass attempts versus rush attempts than the fact that Charbonnet's not in there, honestly.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Derek, thank you for the $5. Usually I'm working and never get to catch the shows live. We got Shanahan figured out. Now we just need to figure out McVay to the same extent. Yeah, that is one of the big things coming out of that playoff game, I guess. We officially have Shanahan in our back pocket.
Yeah, I think he's got a good idea of what he's doing with Mike, and I think with McVay, it is a little different territory, just a different style of offense, different way they attack. Shanahan, for instance, loves the outside zone stuff. They live on running outside. McVay lives on running inside. We have susceptibility with our light box and with our 4-man fronts down there to have teams get downhill in the A and the B gaps, and that can be problematic. So he's got some of its stuff he does stylistically. He was tough against McDonald's defense. Some of it's McVay's just intelligence and what he does. But yeah, now you got to try to find your way to figuring him out. I think he did a good job in the first matchup. I think it's very detail driven. You're only going to be able to hold this offense down for so much, but there are there are ways for this defense, I think, to bring out some things in order to keep them reduced, much more akin to that first matchup than the second.
Yeah, with a full week to prepare, and actually more than a full week to prepare, you would hope. And also with a unit that is effectively completely healthy right now. Like, who are they missing defensively? No one. Literally, I think all the injuries are offensive. Charbonnet, Horton, Josh Jones. Like, this is the defense that you signed on to have for back in week 1, really.
It is. They're at the height of their and they're at the height of their powers. So height of their health and height of their powers, and that's as good a game you can, especially getting to play this at home, Brendan. Like you said, with the next literal extra day of rest. I mean, you had Mike Nadal able to watch that game on Sunday. Just think about that from his standpoint of not just going through tape, grinding tape. He can be there live, kind of going through. Like he said this, so that I thought was cool. Is like he's kind of like, you know, making it like a live fire exercise, so to speak, right? So he's operating like, you know, Bears defense a little bit and thinking what he's going to call to the Rams and what he's anticipating the Rams are doing. I think these things can really help for him to formulate that game plan in an exact fashion to be able to bring something out that can limit this Rams offense.
Yeah, it's I think it's something that he can do. And look, I spend a lot of time on this show and on my channel talking about how one of the big reasons why McDonald was brought in here was to find a way to stop Shanahan, but don't forget about the McVay part as well. That's just as big an element here. So I'm going to put it to the test this weekend, and he's proven he can do it. 2 of the games that we played against McVay since McDonald got here, very good results. You go back to last year's home game. The defense played great in that game too.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they played pretty strongly there. You would have won the overtime if Woolen hadn't lost his ball skills at the end there.
Or if you hadn't run off B gap with Walker 4 straight times after you got the ball in the red zone.
Yeah, that would also help.
Yeah.
That would have also aided some things.
Derpy Squid, thank you for the $10. John is the QB whisperer. No one rated Russ, Gino, or Sam extremely highly coming in, but John saw something. Schneider only ever gets us great QB play. I'm cool with whatever he does there, like Milrow. Well, you know, Charlie Whitehurst might have something to say about that, I guess. I can't forget about.
And then there's the Matt Flynn too in there. So he's getting better, to your point, Dupree, in recent years. And you're right about John earning the benefit of the doubt. And you know, this is what we said with Milrow when he was drafted on. It was like, look, you know, me and Brendan's outlook on Jalen Milrow for reaching his very high upside that does exist. Our confidence in it wasn't great, but at the end of the day, we could acknowledge with it, even if not loving the pick, that, hey, John's definitely earned the benefit of the doubt on this stuff, because to your point, Dupree, he's made hard decisions that were not straightforward. Just go for this guy. And in fact, got a lot of heat for making those decisions to go with each of those individual guys, and that they all paid off to a very big degree. And so he's absolutely earned that benefit of the doubt when it comes to that type of stuff.
Yeah, one thing I would say, though, is the Sam Darnold thing. I think the opposite's true. I think Sam Darnold was a guy that people in the NFL believed in pretty strongly, even when the evidence was to the contrary. I remember Belichick talking about this. I think it was 2 years ago when he was on the Manning cast. Darnold was one of those guys that GMs loved and coaches loved, even no matter how bad he played. They were like, he'll figure it out. He's going to be great. And it has eventually come to pass that it was true. But I think Darnold was one of the guys that people really, really bought into.
He is, I think, too. I don't know if you get this impression as well, but it's just a little bit of like, he had people that were really bought into him and even bought into him throughout the Jets time. And then they just kind of went, well, maybe not. And then they got out of the maybe not phase of it. And then they've come back around. They've been like, no, my initial thing was now right. You know, I'm speaking to NFL people on this a little bit with the outlook of Sam on that. You know, for instance, if Sam got back on that open market this year, you'd have endless amounts of teams lining up for him services this year versus last year, you know. But John was ahead of that curve on recognizing last year was true and real, and not just a mirage, and not getting caught up in the national perspective on Sam or that last final game, you know, actually looking beyond some base parameters here into stuff a little more advanced with him in the position and what he's doing.
Right. And, you know, I've said this before, I'll say it again. If John moves off of Darnold earlier than people expect, then I'm going to be a little bit surprised. But at this point, I'm going to go with it, right? Because it seems like he knows what's up. He's getting this stuff right when very few others do.
Yeah, you third round quarterback and nobody's starting a third round quarterback, and you end up with a guy who has almost a Hall of Fame career, and Geno, who everybody laughed at when we made starter and said, "What are you guys doing? You have to draft Desmond Ridder and Malik Willis or Will Levis." Didn't do it. Went with Geno, and it paid off. And Sam, it's to even just continuing right down the line here. And I don't. There's no general managers out there, and look, there's no GMs that are going to be in one spot for this amount of time to probably be able to do this. But all that being said, there's no GMs out there that have been able to stack up 3 quarterbacks in succession like this. No one. And
Right.
and it's hard enough to hit one and not have a couple bad ones before you find your next one if you get that opportunity. But to boom, 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 1, 2, 3 like this, that is very impressive.
Right. So it's a pretty cool weapon to have. And by the way, John Schneider did officially win Executive of the Year from Sporting News and the Pro Football Writers of America earlier today, which there is no Associated Press for Executive of the Year. So those are the official awards. So he's got it. He's got it as much as he's ever going to get it.
Well earned, John. Well earned on your part, man. So many great decisions you made over the last 3 years. And it starts with that Russell Wilson trade. And just from there, you see a thread of just intelligence, smart move, intelligent, smart move, intelligent, smart move, intelligent. Stack all those up over a 3-year period, man. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but just so many smart moves end up really bearing out this beautiful success that we've had.
Right. Joseph, thank you for the $5. I was at the last Rams Seahawks game, and it seemed like when the running back ran a slant outright and then came back to the middle to catch was always open. I guess that's a Texas route, right? That would be a Texas route.
Yeah, kind of an arrow route they call it too. Yeah, I mean it's always going to be a little bit of the game you're playing with a Niner team a bit where you're trying to take the in-cutting routes away over the backside. To do that, you got to have the linebackers drop to depth. If linebackers drop to depth, it's then going to open up for the running back to get there because the running back's running that angle route out of the backfield when they're doing that. They're initially kind of going lateral, initially off the jump with it, and then coming back inside to drive it back inside. So to the linebackers, they're dropping to depth. It gives that little out and in, gives the linebackers that little extra couple steps to get to depth. So now when he crosses the line, he's got a couple yards in front of the linebackers to make the catch. So Seattle's, much like the Rams with this, you run a light box. You're going to tend to run really light coverages or soft coverages on the backside by tendencies. And you'll definitely have some chimes will change this, but then within that, the extra thing as far as what you get in causation with that is going to be shorter routes opened up, quicker little throws in space, and then can your guys rally up and tackle before they're able to do anything. But that's stylistically how we like to run things, Rams. Niners too, in a lot of ways.
I am a big fan of the Texas route. It is one of my favorite routes in football.
Me too. And I would love for the Seahawks background to why use that this week. I felt like early in that game, you had the little couple, he made the one throw to Walker where I love the route. Walker, it's play action. Walker steps right in front of the line of scrimmage. He throws it right there to him. Walker does a little sidestep moves and goes and gets 6-7 yards. Like I would love to run that 6 times in this game. Their linebackers drop to depth. He drops out. You get the ball into his hands, force them to come up and rally and tackle on him in space. It's a freebie. And the thing is that Stafford or Sam went to it, Brendan, early in the game, and then he didn't really go back to it as much. And that's the thing with Sam is sometimes he will get a little bit hyperextended on. And he didn't have to throw a lot in this game, so we just have a lot of passing attempts too. But I really want to see him work that route in this game. The throws to the flat and those throws right in front of the line of scrimmage there. Make those throws happen, especially as you've gone through a couple of reads. You go 1, 2, okay, that's your automatic. Come back to this one underneath and make that because those are. I think they're there all day long against this Rams defense.
Right. Just ask yourself, what would McCorkle do? And that's what McCorkle would do. He would throw it to Walker on that play over and over again.
Amen. I ask myself every morning when I wake up, what would McCorkle do?
Very, very important thing to ask yourself right now.
That's right.
Peter Go Hawks, thank you for the $1.99. Rams win the coin toss. Do they defer? Shaheed. Interesting.
Well, wouldn't you, because you got to make your choice about what the most important thing is on the coin flip. Isn't maybe the most important thing on the coin flip going to be not ending the game on that side of the field that's towards the north side of the field, essentially? You're going to make a pick?
Yeah, that is an interesting one. I feel like the Rams are going to start with the ball no matter what, because I feel like we would defer to the second half and the Rams would want the ball first because their offense is really good. And the offense is what they've been mostly riding recently. I feel like one way or the other, the Rams are going to get the ball first.
I could see that. I can see it. I certainly am in favor of deferring, Peter, if it comes down to deciding or not. I like getting the ball back at halftime and setting yourself up potentially at the first half to steal that possession away, which Seahawks have done a great job of this year of, eliminating that extra possession for the opposition, and you get that last possession at halftime, and then sometimes come back and you're going to get the ball right at the at the start of the next half. That to me is, if you can set the lines for that's really great, because this game will be a lot about, I think, early on, as some other people have said on this, it's kind of a little bit about surviving early on, I think. And the Rams are going to come out and give you a real aggressive punch, get your nerves out of your system, get this into where it's just a regular old football game that starts to get played by the second, third quarter. Now you really, really lock in and go.
Yeah. I don't have the stat in front of me, but I believe if you go from the first Rams-Panthers game back in the regular season through the Rams-Panthers playoff game, the Rams defensive EPA is like 27th or 28th in the league. They've been like genuinely a really bad defense for about 2 months. And then they had that good game against the Bears where there may have been some weather impact there, but I don't think they want to start on defense. I think they have kind of shied away from thinking that defense is anything close to what it looked like early in the season.
Yeah, I could see that being the case for sure. I certainly could see them trying to protect that away a little bit.
But there's no way Shaheed's going to get the ball, by the way. There's no way. I think they'll kick it out of bounds before they let Shaheed get a return in this game.
Yeah, you saw in the Bears game at that last punt. The Rams didn't trust their punting unit to be able to protect the punt to the degree that they didn't have anybody trying to get up to go and gun up down the field. They just kept all their blockers in tight. Like, they're trying to protect their special teams, and you can feel it. Like, they're scared of it causing problems. And this is an issue when you're in the playoffs like this with this, because you start trying to, rather than you're fixing a problematic spot in your team, you're trying to like minimize it and sort of like, how can we just kind of get by with it? And the NFL don't work that way. You ain't getting by. You still got to execute on it. And so you're right. They're going to kick in the back of the end zone, but now we're getting the ball every time at the 35-yard line,
Right.
Every single time. And that removes an advantage from the Rams if that's what they're going to do to give us that every single time too. So it's kind of cool that you're at that point where you're forcing teams to have to go to that degree of extremes, because they don't want to do it. You can see it throughout the playoffs, Brendan. They're trying to hit that ball past the 20 and roll it, or hit it at the 5-yard line in the air and at least knock them deep to where they have to come up. They don't want to put it back in the end zone at the 35. That's 2 first downs and you're in field goal range.
Yeah, but I assume that's what they're going to do in this one. They special teams have almost cost them both of these playoff games, by the way. You had the punt against the Bears that you talked about. They had the punt blocked against the Panthers that set up their go-ahead touchdown with like 2 minutes left. Like, they're very lucky special teams have not already ended their season. And like, we've talked about this before. When a team has a glaring weakness like that, it just seems inevitable that glaring weakness ends up ending their season prematurely. Like the 2021 Packers did this too. They had the worst special teams in the league. They had the number 1 seed. They play a beat up Niners team in the divisional round, and they lost because their special teams were terrible.
100%. It's something that rears its ugly head at this time of the year in a major way. And I think, Brendan, just on top of your point with this, every time that we've seen this year, our special teams go up against another team that's one of the worst in the league or really bad, we've exploited them. You have felt it not in just kind of a general subtle fashion throughout the game and how it played out, but you actually had some real tangible moments where you're like, oh yeah, that's why we're much better with that phase of the football than what this team is. And it came up in the last game against the Rams with the punt return, the big game-changing play of the game. It happened in the Falcon game on the kick return touchdown. That we walked in that game going, man, this Falcon special teams is ass. And it played out and showed out that way. So it will be a factor. It's not just a third rung of the team. It's a big major part of this team. And in this game, the way you play special teams all the way around, not just on what you kickoff returns, but how you defend and your punting and your kicking game. In addition to that, it really is a separating factor, I think, in this game.
Yeah, it would not be a shock at all if we're here on Thursday next week talking about how the Rams special teams gave it away.
Not at all. Yeah, not at all.
John Naylor, thank you for the $1.99. Sam D getting love. Hell, Niners writing poems now.
Yeah, I was on the round table, and the bet that was lost this week was Jesse had to write a love poem to Sam Darnold.
How'd he do?
So he did good. It was hard from the heart. He went good. It was not AI done. It was very well. I was very impressed. It was very satisfying. Again, another year's just been so sad. Last week got him in the hat. Last week got him in the hat, Brendan, and then this week got him reading the poem. So, it's going pretty good this year.
Yeah, pretty good, man. I mean, that's a team that is on the way down, and we're a team on the way up now. So could be many more poems for years to come. If you can get him to take the bet. If I'm him, I don't know if I'm taking those bets anymore.
He might be a little traumatized after this one going into next year, to your point. And the Niners got a long road, man. Don't envy them in the situation they're in right now. Highly paid quarterback, old roster, a lack of difference makers on both sides of the ball, injuries all over the place, a substation that you might have to move. It's not great.
Yeah, we got to get CMC away from Shanahan, by the way. He was giving him carries when it was 41-6. Like, what are we doing?
Oh, I know. And he had all those touches this year. I think it's the third highest amount of touches. If you take his targets, catches, and rushes, I think it's the third most running backs ever had in NFL history or something like that, or at least modern era. Wouldn't shock me if he retires at this point. I don't know if I'm him and him come back. You got paid last year on the thing. Maybe you just call it a day. Go, hey, because you're not coming back Niner team. They're going to run you in the dirt, and you're already going to be. You're reduced this year. He averaged 3.9 yards per carry. I know he had 2,000 total yards, but he was not the same McCaffrey.
Oh yeah. He's got very little left, I think. And this has been brewing for a little while now. Like, they overworked him 2 years ago. He gets to the Super Bowl, he fumbles. I mean, CMC never fumbles. Why do you think he fumbled? He was tired.
Yeah, that's what Shanahan will do. He'll wear a guy out, and he falls in love with a guy, and he just keeps spamming that button.
Mm-hmm. I don't get it, especially when it's 41-6.
No, I don't either. It's like, dude, bring in Robinson. What are you doing, dude? Right. He's that way, though.
Yeah. Industry Worth, thank you for the $4.99.
Oh, thank you, Industry.
Oh, I think the Rams will mix in more base defense variants to shut down our run and make our offensive line protect Darnold, posting for Misfit.
No, thank you for that, Industry Worth post for Misfit. Yeah, I think it's certainly possible that they say, look, we got to do something to stop this run game. Even in itself, running the 3-4 shows that, they'd like to be in 4-man fronts like us. They've gone to 3-4s because of the fact that they've recognized we can't get away with that with our defense. We have to have that base defense out there. So they're already sort of taking some of these steps. Could I see them taking more? Yeah, that's where I come down to, if you can get into like your base, which is that 21 personnel, when your I formation looks and 2 wide and 1 tight end, you're in that. Now you can kind of force them to come to base and maybe force that safety down. And now you've cleared out that space on the back end, run it out of the condensed splits like we did last year, or earlier on the year with JSN. And now it doesn't have to go to JSN necessarily like you did earlier on in the year. You can go to Shaheed because he can take the top off the defense with his speed. And you've got an isolated one-on-one matchup at that point. So I would just look in those moments to try to, run play action out of that I formation. You get all of them locked on the I formation, and then you take your shots over the top a couple of times in this game. If it opens up, if the Rams crack that door open, kick it through, take advantage of it. And I feel like we probably will. Even last week with the intention of trying to get to Shaheed, it does show that there's a little understanding here. Like, we got to press these defenses a little bit. We can't just live in the short and the intermediate and sort of take that away from defenses of saying there's no threat for us to push on the back end because we're just going to anticipate you're going to be in cover 2 shell and cover 2 a lot post snap. You can't do that. You got to force them that's actually what they're playing in, because a lot of these defenses are opening up some lanes for us to throw deep, especially with Shaheed at times with some of the coverages, sliding. We looked at the I formation look with the Niners a couple weeks ago on the show last week, and teams are moving that one safety this way. Teams are moving the other safety up by the box. That's leaving Shaheed that one-on-one.
Right. I mean, it does seem like it's all setting up for that to happen eventually, right? There's no way you can get a player like a Shaheed and not hit him on one go route for an entire half a season. So I am waiting for it to happen.
Yeah, I would just like to see Sam throw a 9-ball to him and just, Sam, throw it as far as you can and see if he can run under it. I want to see you throw it to one where there's a possibility of the ball landing in front of Shaheed. Something these quarterbacks are driving me crazy with, and their latency on these deep balls and when they want to throw it. All of them end up having this thing go on now in the modern era where all these deep balls end up just like sitting up in the sky, and the receiver has to slow down, and any of the separation they lose, any separation they'd gained is lost because now they got to slow down to come back and catch the ball. Put it out in front of them. The old rule of thumb used to be put it out so only your guy can get it or nobody can get it. It's like some of these quarterbacks are trying to throw contested balls on 9 routes down the field and not back shoulders, like contested balls where the guy's got to jump up and go catch it over the top of a corner. I don't get it. You got a guy with a speedster like this with this kind of speed, just throw it up. The old Michael Vick to Deshaun Jackson throw that's celebrated back in the day when he's with the Eagles, right? Where he just threw it as far as he freaking could. That's what you do with a guy like Rashid Shaheed. Just throw it as far as you can. And if it lands in front of him, so be it. But if he's able to catch up to it, he catches it, the corner's not next to him because he's outran the corner, and it's a guaranteed touchdown, as opposed to you throw that deep ball when you try to throw it on the man. He's got to go up and make a contested catch throw. Now he's tackled right where he's caught the ball. That's the other reason I like to have it out in front of him at times and to let him, especially a speedster. If you got the big guy that's a 6'3", 6'4" DK guy or something like kind of that Mike Evans guy, okay, maybe now you put a little bit on them and let them use their body and their size to kind of box them out, but not with a guy like a Shaheed. Let him run under it.
Mm-hmm. I like it. And I mean, it could be a great equalizer in a game like this. It could be. If they do manage to stop our run, then you're going to have to do it at some point for sure.
Well, your defense is going to make them earn their way up the field. And if you're able to go steal touchdowns quick in this game, you're right. To your point, that's devastating just from a spirit standpoint for an offense. Like, we got to go up 14 plays to get this touchdown. They just did in 2. And every time we want to score a touchdown, it's going to take that many plays.
Right. And the other thing to keep in mind is the Rams, all their stunts and twists, those guys take a little while to get home. Even when they do get pressure, they take a little bit longer to get there. So that's something you got to take into account here when you're trying to come up with a game plan.
Indeed.
John Naylor, thank you for the $1.99. Hawk fans, our team substation 49er disarray is good. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there's a much easier explanation than the substation, right? Like it's just Shanahan works the guys too hard in practice, which is apparently the case according to what a lot of players say.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like hard to do the substation when you have a coach like Shanahan who is so renowned for running some pretty intense style of practices and what he does. And we talked about, for instance, with McCaffrey, you can see in McCaffrey how he used in Deebo Samuel. There's an old school sort of theory within Kyle that seems to be born from, I'm just building a callus here. No, I'm not wearing him down. I'm just building up the callus, and I think he thinks of it in that term. And I think that this does run a little bit counter to the modern view of how you train guys and rest and recovery and some of this stuff, how it kind of comes in. I think that's a bit of it. With that said, there's a lot of people out there on the woo-woo side that are with the substation, and it's in the players' heads, man. They're talking about it a lot. So just the fact it's in their heads, whether it's real or not, is something in itself, I would say,
Yeah, I agree. And there are things they can do. They can move where they practice. They can have the substation moved. I'm sure there are avenues to at least eliminate the possibility, but I don't think it's going to fix their problems. Like, that's an old team. Like, if Trent Williams shows up to training camp next year and immediately tears something in his bicep and is out for the year, I'm not going to be putting that on the substation. I'm going to put that on him having insane mileage on a 38-year-old body.
That's I think fair enough with it. You know what I mean? And I would tend to believe in the same way you are with it. There's not a, substation on it. And that's not the issue there, but as well, it is in the players' heads. And man, there's some people with it with some of the science on this one. There may be something to it. I don't know. It's regardless. It's just another extra item, I suppose. If I can really quick, Brendan, just because we don't have any mods necessarily on my side of it here. Mile High, appreciate you coming in our chat and appreciate you and your discussion in the chat. But please understand, coming here, Bronco fan and outsider fans are all welcome. Ram fans welcome in. We're really not in this whole, like, you're going to upend the chat and upend the discussion and you're going to try to make it all about yourself in the chat on that. And like, not what we're trying to talk about with our Seahawks in this upcoming matchup. So if you want to operate from that standpoint, you can keep doing so. But I'm just going to let you know now that I'm kind of had enough of you like setting off my people in my chat. You've done so a variety of different times on a variety of different shows now that I've watched you do this on. Time to cut it out now. Time to act like an adult. Let's be respectful. Let's have good football discussion. Let's stop trying to just see if we can trigger people, which seems to be your intent now over the last couple of days. Appreciate it.
Yeah. We don't care about the Broncos. Sorry, dude. Like, they're playing the other game. Yeah. They're playing the early game. Like,
nobody cares about the Broncos, literally. So, like, you got Jared Stidham starting at quarterback, and you're coming into a Seahawks chat to show how confident you are. Like, okay.
There's going to be another show out there where you can go. Like, there's a Patriots show somewhere, I'm sure, but we do not care about the Broncos right now. Sorry.
Yeah. I like having fans from other teams come in here, but it serves nothing to just try to sit there and trigger fans in the chat. You're doing nothing to help my channel out or Brennan's channel, and you're not doing anything to further the discussion along. You're just being toxic, and there's no room for that in here. So do what you want to do on it, but I've let you know now.
Coda Dad, thank you for the $13.99 Canadian. I love Rasheed on returns and sweeps, but is anyone ever mentioned about his ability to get open on passes? He can do it. He's been a very productive receiver in his career.
Yeah, it's not, I think the lack of productivity for him as a pass catcher is not really one where he can't get open, or that is he a prime pass catcher and receiver in that way. And that, he's a guy that creates a lot of separation, and that not necessarily is he going to be that kind of guy, but as well, I think that this is more, and I'd be interested to see where you stand on it. I think that this is more born from you're running the ball so much, you're throwing the ball so little. And then when you are throwing the ball throughout the course, even the back half of the schedule, so many of those targets then go into JSN, and it eats up so much, and that you're left with, I call it like a pie. You start out with this, and then you get left down to like this much of a slice left over for a guy like Shaheed to maybe be able to have an opportunity to be able to actually, go get those touches and targets. And 17 attempts this past week, 2 targets in the game. There just isn't the opportunities, and it's really born from success, not from failure. It's born from the success of the team and the success of the offense, not that you're not finding a way to, work him in.
Yeah, there was actually a third target in that game, but it didn't count because there was pass interference. And that was actually a big play in this game. That was pretty early. It was like a 23-yard penalty and helped keep a drive going. So there are ways that Shaheed can impact the game like that. He has drawn a decent number of penalties this year without actually catching the ball. That's also something worth noting.
Yeah. And I think this is a game too, Brendan. Wouldn't you like to maybe see where you're down Charbonnet? We've used Shaheed out of the backfield as a running back at times. Like, we've gone to that. And like 2 games left in the season. I know normally you don't have a receiver taking running back snaps back there very often, but I know that this has happened recently. I mean, remember Niners did it with Debo, and they really transitioned, it felt like, into him as a running back as much once they got in the playoffs, and they're just like, go for broke, put him at running back, right? So there's a part of me too in this game of, hey, if I put him back there for 4 or 5 carries in this game, especially if I'm not throwing the ball a lot, and especially if I'm not necessarily be able to find him as much, not the worst of ways to go, right? On maybe featuring him in that way.
Yeah. There's also probably a lack of chemistry with him and Darnold that doesn't exist with JSN because they worked together during the offseason. They worked together in camp, and Shaheed showed up in the middle of the season. So next year, assuming we bring back Shaheed, which I do think we will, it's probably going to be a lot better.
Yeah, I agree. And an offseason to work with Sam and throw with Sam a little bit will certainly help. The timing of that stuff's hard to get up clicked in midseason. It just is.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. M. Jordan, thank you for the $4.99. I think it's a very real possibility that the Hawks get up by 2 scores, and it would be interesting to see how Mike and Clint call plays with a lead. Well, a 2-score lead is nothing in the NFL right now, so hopefully they would keep the pedal to the metal.
I would hope so as well. I think that we do have a little of a baseline here, Jordan, where you look through the early part of the year, that was where you were getting up on teams. And what we did see with that through the early part of the season was a lot of taking the foot off the gas and trying to kind of, let's just lean on the clock a little bit here through the back of this game and try to find our way through. They got a little aggressive then, but then it kind of bit them in the butt. Like, so we have then the Texans game on this whole, you're getting up early, and now you're taking your foot off the gas. Then you get to the Texans game and you're like, well, let's keep our foot on the gas. And then you get a couple interceptions. You get their Elijah Arroyo fumble. And it's like, man, we just can't win on this approach. Like, we finally take the right approach, and then it sort of blows up on us. So what they would do here, I'm kind of unsure. I would expect with the playoffs that you probably lean in a little bit like you were in the early part of the year, which is Mike says, look, I'll trust my defense. I'm going to be a little conservative offensively, and we're going to run the ball a lot on that and lean on the clock. Which I want to still maintain aggression, but as well, if I get up by 2 touchdowns on this Rams team and I'm into the third quarter, I could kind of understand Mike McDonald saying, regardless of how good the Stafford offense is, I've got the best defense in football and I've got a 2-touchdown lead. I'm going to lean on that, and I can't argue with that as good as they've been in that way.
Yeah, but I do think about that Rams Eagles game last year where the Eagles had a 2-touchdown lead with 4 minutes left. And then Rams came very close to winning that game. So the Eagles defense last year was great. So it's not like that was a bad defense.
Rams can put points up on you like that, right? So, they showed us that in the last game. So it's, to your point, it's not a safe lead at that point. But I think I would estimate they would kind of operate that way if they had that kind of lead deep in the game.
Yeah, and they've earned the right to do what they feel like is correct in those situations. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but you got to be careful. These leads don't really mean anything anymore the way they used to. There was a time where a team would go up by 17 points and it was done, but that time has passed.
Good news too is I don't think any of the 3 losses we've had this year, we've lost the lead within, or had the lead and then got conservative and somebody came back and took it from us. It was more of like, you just lost the game outright.
Right. In fact, let me think here. I don't know if we've blown any leads under Mike Macdonald, or at least not any big leads. I'm thinking about it. I can't think of anything.
Nothing standing out to me either. I'm sure there's one example somewhere, but nothing jumping out.
Guile G, thank you for the $1.99. Worried about Puka. Well, there's a lot to uncover with that Rams offense right now, but it does seem like there's some stuff you can do with Puka sticking in man defense. If you put man coverage on him, has a lot of a much harder time breaking through.
Man coverage is the way to go. You're not going to stop him with it, but I'm prepping for a show tomorrow. I'm going to do, Brendan, with how to take down this Rams offense specifically and what you're looking at and what through the first 2 games of Seattle and how they played him and watching how teams have played Puka in the playoffs. Bears ran a tremendous amount of man coverage across the board against this Rams team. They're one of the lowest teams in the league at separation on their routes in the league. And that to me stands out that should be a number that tells you, if you're a team that can run man concepts, to lean more into the man-based concepts. Last time, a lot of what the Rams did the worst to you in that second matchup was you in zone. That's where they attacked you. They weren't taking apart your man coverage concepts. They were attacking your zone coverage concepts. So this would be a game where, to me, I'm worried about Puka, number 1, Guile. Number 2, I don't think we had much of a plan for how to deal with Puka before. I think this defense sometimes drives me a little nuts with Macdonald. It'll lean a little bit into, we're just going to be who we are. We're going to call our defense how we're going to call it. We're not going to try to concentrate to this guy over here and taking him away. And this would be the type of game I'd really like to do that. I don't think Devontae Adams is 100%. I don't think the rest of this receiving core scares me in the least. I think that we can cover their tight ends. A guy like Nicky Manwari, there's nobody on Tyler Higbee ain't getting freed up on Nicky Manwari. So I do look at it like Puka's kind of one of those main guys or only guys that can really devastate you. He's going to come into this game with probably 13, 14 targets in theory that he's going to be thrown to, because that's what Stafford does to him. I feel like you put that all together and it does lend well to, okay, if you're not going to double him, then run the man concepts on him, right? If you at least do that, make it as hard as possible, because there's going to be difficulty in separating a little bit. I think even he's not 100% right now, quite frankly. I think Adams is less than 100%, Puka and Stafford. Yeah, I think I don't think there's a major injury that's affecting any of them, but I think that they've got some things that are nagging, that are reducing, especially in Adams, and a little bit to a lesser degree in Puka's case, reducing them down. Maybe in Stafford's case, the finger, because the finger just came up in Panthers and last week, and how he threw it was certainly not what we normally expect from Stafford. But you got to have a plan, Guile, and I don't think that we had a plan, and maybe it's because of the short week prior before, but you got to have some kind of plan in place for how you're going to deal with him, because if you just let him run loose and free through your zones, he's going to tear you apart.
Right. And I have a good deal of confidence that they're going to come up with a game plan cultivated for this matchup in this one. It'd be very strange if, with extra time to prepare and with it being a playoff game, they just went out there and treated Puka like he's Jawan Jennings or something.
I kind of feel like he's been preparing for multiple weeks, even before last weekend, for the Rams, because there was a real way that he could have seen going into the prior weeks, playoff games, to where you were going to likely have to face the Rams. No one saw really the 49ers taking down the Eagles. And I'm sure he kind of looked at it like, well, if the 49ers take down the Eagles, we can just basically apply our same game plan from the prior week. We'll rush 4, we'll drop 7 into coverage, right? Because it wasn't a real complicated 49er game plan from the prior week you would run. I bet he's been locking in on this Rams matchup and going, look, sooner or later, we're playing them one way or the other here probably. So let me start doing some of this work to try to itemize this game plan and put something filthy together. Hopefully.
And he wants revenge, because last time we played this Rams team, that was the worst. That was probably the worst McDonald's defense has been since he got here. Like well over 500 yards, no turnovers, no sacks. Like, that's as bad as it gets.
Bad as it gets. And we haven't seen anything close to that kind of performance from him here. Maybe the little bit of the Lions game last year, maybe kind of close, but aside from those 2 games, nothing like that here from his defenses.
Adis the Gamer, thank you for the 4.99. Have belief and faith in this Seahawks. Tough team, but we have an advantage on defense and special teams. Offense can still do things. Go Hawks. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. You got a much better defense. You got a much better special teams, and their offense is a bit better than yours. How does the calculus work on that? Well, tell me on the surface of it, you should be little bit better at that.
Yeah, there is a long and established history of elite defenses playing elite offenses in the postseason. It usually goes the way of the elite defense.
Yeah. And I would offer to you, Brendan, that if you put the special teams part on that, so if you take that, if you take that exactly the way you just spoke about it, and you add on the defense has got the great special teams, or they have the the advantage over that offensive team with the special teams, that only gets more thoroughly locked in, that rule of thumb.
Yeah. And Adis the Gamer, thank you for the $1.99. And most importantly, same energy. Go Hawks. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I like it.
Yes, sir.
Mike McGee, thank you for the $5. Seahawks in a blowout. I'm not saying 41-6, but I think we dominant. I do think there's a pathway to a blowout win. Like I could see it, because that Rams defense has been so bad lately. The Rams are probably a little bit tired. They've been on the road forever now. I think they played 4 straight road games. They had to go to overtime against the Bears. They had to go down to the wire against the Panthers. They could be kind of, it's not the same as the Niners, because the Niners had way more injuries. But it would not shock me if the Rams are just kind of like exhausted and will fall over if they get pushed enough. I wouldn't be amazed by it.
Well, to your point, look at those snap counts last week with the Bears game. I mean, Landman 71 snaps at the linebacker position. I think they had, I think Verse was up at like 60 snaps or something like that with where he was operating from. So these guys, like you said, have been on the road, and then they're not only been on the road often and playing tough games, 2 tough games of the playoffs, which are already a little bit more intense and taxing than normal games. But then you have that other factor on top of it, where that final game on a short week has you playing all those extra snaps on both sides of the ball in addition to it. It's not that it would, to me, be the mitigating factor that drives the win, but I just look at the small advantages that you have stacked up on this coming into this game being a real factor that pushes you forth to the victory. And it wouldn't surprise me if we got a comfortable win here. I'm not predicting it, but I don't think that it's out of pocket to see that the pathway for that to exist. The first game you played, 4 interceptions, yet you almost still had the win at the end on a field goal. The last game you had 2 interceptions to their none, yet you were able to still go get the win. You just almost eliminate interceptions alone by that math a little bit here. Say nothing of being kind of due to go get a pick from Stafford here, a pick or two like he's kind of doing. And by the way, since week 12, no quarterback in the sport has a higher turnover-worthy amount of plays from that position than Matt Stafford.
Oh, yeah.
This is a guy
dodging raindrops.
He's dodging raindrops right now. And so he's kind of due when you put all that together. And so I put these parameters up and I go, yeah, a lot set up in our favor for us to go get this win right now. Just for where they're at and where our team's at, and all playing at home and all of that, and how a little tired they might be and a little beat up at certain spots that they think they might be. So yeah, I can see it, man.
Yeah, it's kind of like actually our first NFC Championship game against Carolina 21 years ago, or 20 years ago, actually. Don't know how many people in the chat remember that, but I certainly do. I remember the lead up to that game that week. Most people thought Carolina was going to win that game. They had the Triple Crown Steve Smith, and then they get to that game, and you watch that game play out, and you're like, oh yeah, this Panthers team doesn't have anybody except Steve Smith anymore. They were down to their 3rd string running back, and they just completely crumbled. And by the end of that game, people were like, oh yeah, of course the Panthers lost. Of course they got blown out. They don't have anybody except Steve Smith. It's like that Black Swan event where nobody predicts the thing, and then after the thing happens, everybody realizes, oh, we really should have seen that coming. Wouldn't shock me.
Wouldn't shock me at all. I mean, that's a great reference. And I do think the Rams team's certainly a little bit stronger versus where they were coming in that Panther team in 2005. But to your point on it, it's like there's a pathway for it to certainly go this way. And we know in that stadium, the Niners got to face this last week. We've been hyping people up that playoff ball and Lumen Field is a different brand of ball. It's not the same of a regular season game and just no. If you were in that stadium, you know what I'm talking about. And if you've been in that stadium in the playoffs, you know what I'm talking about. There's just a different energy. There's a different level of excitement, a different level to the noise. It's why it is the toughest environment in football to play in when it's at its most ruckus. And that isn't just some small little teensy tiny advantage that sort of is, that's kind of beneficial. It's a huge advantage. And you saw it last week, and that you get the momentum shifted in your direction. The players feel that, and it can just completely just electrify things in a way like it did last week, like it did that Panthers game, where it started to shift on them in that direction, and you just can't stop in that stadium. Things start to shift in a direction. It's like you just can't reverse it back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do think that if the Seahawks win this game convincingly or even in a blowout, a lot of people are going to come out of that game saying we kind of should have seen that coming based on all these particulars. I will say that much.
Yeah, I agree. It's why I've got us with the win in this game, and why I think that there's a lot of, if you're just trying to analyze this game and pull it apart in that way, why you should have the Seahawks with the win. And they're the favorites coming in this, right? I didn't see the line.
They are.
Vegas has got to.
Yeah, we are favored. I think it's either 2.5 or 3.
Okay. So, and that sounds about right. And so it's, I think that these things all kind of add up to that. And I think Vegas is kind of seeing that the same way.
Mm-hmm. Adis, thank you for the $1.89. McDonald will get it right this time. He will. He is undefeated when he gets to second chance against these teams.
And we know with him 5-0 with a bye week over the last 3 years. This isn't really a bye week, but there's a lot of it. It's got some tenets of a bye week. The extra day of rest, having a little bit of that time to prepare for the Rams in advance, knowing you're probably going to face them. So maybe he will be able to kind of dial something up that's kind of nasty this week with his defense that the Rams aren't maybe expecting. And from the Rams' perspective on this, I'm sure you look at their recent film, the Hawks, and you're like, okay, front four, 7-man fronts. They're not running a lot of their stacked boxes, simulated pressures. You can maybe catch them off guard with some of that stuff and running that this week because they're seeing you so heartily just sort of staying in sort of kind of base designs, basically not base defense, but base designs on just, we're not running a lot of extra stuff.
Mike McGee, thank you for the $5. Let's assume we win it all. Is this unit better than 2013? 2013 defense was all-time great, but this team as a whole just feels better than 2013. I think this team would probably be better.
Yeah, I think this team would be better. And the reason being, a couple of things with this. Number one, the level of dominance that you've gotten from this team in football games this year, the amount of blowouts that you've had, including what we just had in the playoffs. That Seahawks team wasn't blowing teams out in the playoffs. And that Saints game was pretty close, that first one, right? The Niner game was pretty close. And then you blew out, of course, the Broncos in that game at the end. So you got that one, but that wasn't who they were throughout the year and what they did. And I think the DVOA shows this off, Brendan. I don't know if you've seen it, but this is the biggest, the most competitive DVOA matchup that they've had in NFL history between these two teams. And then you have the Seahawks are up like 40%, and they had the Legion of Boom like 36% as far as their DVOA kind of percentage rank goes. So they've got this team as a better team as well. I think it's a better special teams unit. I think this does surpass that special teams unit with 3 returned touchdowns this year, 3 or 4 right now. I can't keep track of how many. We had Horton with 1 and 3 to 4. So you got 4 returns on that. So your special teams unit also got a touchdown earlier in this year. Instead, I mean, they're vastly superior to that other special teams unit. And I like Hauschka, but Hauschka wasn't kicking anything outside of 43 yards. That was his, That was as far as it was going to go with him.
Yeah, and the other thing is that 2013 team kind of feasted against really bad offenses. Like I was looking it up earlier this year. They did not play a single game against a top 9 offense that year until the Super Bowl. And they played the 32nd, the 31st, the 30th, the 29th offense. They played all the worst offenses. They didn't play any of the top offenses until the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense then on that end up. So I would give the nod to this one, Brennan. I think this would be the better team. And to your back, the pathway you've had to go through, we were not the toughest division in football in 2013. The Niners were maybe the second best team in football in 2013, but you had 2 other people in your division that weren't doing a whole hell of a lot. So now you have by far the best division in football, maybe the best divisional performance we've seen in the NFL in maybe 20, 30 years.
Right.
And that's also a bit of a factor here too, in the pathway it took for you to get there.
All right, we do have some breaking news here, not Seahawks related, but pretty significant. So let's spend 1 second on this. The Ravens. All right, yeah, hit me with the drop. The Ravens are hiring Jesse Minter as their new head coach. Jesse Minter, he's got the job that a lot of people thought Kubiak was going to get in a couple weeks.
Kubiak fit never made sense to me there.
Yeah,
with him and Lamar. That just I never saw I just could never see how they thought that would be a good working relationship there. But makes sense. They need to get their defense reset, and that's a Ravens team that seems historically to be one that's as good as their defense is. Yeah, Lamar's been exciting and it's cool what he's been able to do for them offensively, but it's really the defense that drives that train, and it's been a little bit emptied, I think, in recent years for how they've played. But they've got some good young parts there, man. And Mike Green's a good young edge rusher, and Hamilton, of course, and the kid they drafted out of Georgia last year he had a pretty good year, I think, overall. So they can turn some things. Travis Jones down there on the defensive line, Matabuke coming back from his injury.
Okay, so what's left? Buffalo, Vegas, Arizona, Pittsburgh. Right? Is that it?
I think that's right.
Oh,
there feels like there's one more.
Miami's filled, right? They got Halfley.
Miami filled. They got Halfley now. Yeah, there does feel like there was just one more though, wasn't there? One just popped up.
Yeah,
there's been so many, man. It's hard to remember.
Oh, the Browns. The Browns haven't hired anyone yet. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Browns are.
So I think the only teams that have interviewed Kubiak that still have an opening are Vegas and Arizona.
I think he goes to Raiders.
Yeah, that's where people are starting to lean right now. I mean, I don't know though, because it's like Mendoza is an RPO merchant, and Kubiak doesn't want to run RPO.
If I'm Kubiak's standpoint, I've said from a standpoint of picking a team where you have success, I would not be trying to pick any of these teams right now. Not just because it's going to be hard, but because it's almost going to be damn near nigh impossible on these teams. Cardinals, in this division. And the Raiders completely are devoid of talent. You mentioned Mendoza with the RPO option. He's gonna have to reteach him everything under center and footwork under center, and they're gonna want to have the kid play fast. And now he's gonna start doing this. Watch, Brendan, which will be, we'll just have him run a lot of RPO concepts with some of my playbook, and we'll just try to, and then it'll probably get him broken and probably get him injured. Like, you can see the whole pathway this goes if you're a Kubiak trying to go down this. Now the paycheck is what it is. 5 years, $25 million guaranteed. You can't turn it down. But that's a landing spot. That how many coaches they've gone through in the recent years? They've gone through 3 in like the last 3 years alone out there. They don't stay with guys. They bounce off. They aren't committed organizationally to spending the right money that they need to spend to make it happen. We'll see as this being kind of one of those cases, as people tell me he should really be thinking about the spot. Well, this will be the one shining example of whether or not this does carry weight with these coordinators. Of, does it really matter where you go, or is it just to get the job offers enough, to get the guarantees enough?
Yeah. I don't know. I hate that Mendoza Kubiak combo, because they're going to take Mendoza. We know that. Like, Spytech will not be overruled by Kubiak if that's what it comes to.
Agreed. Yeah, and it's what teams just do in general. Beyond Spytech, this is just what teams do. You're up there. There's a quarterback who people think should be the number one. You just take him. Like, they don't think about it a lot. They don't get into the debt. Like, you're thinking about, what about the fit to offense? Right? That you should be thinking about that. But we know teams don't think about that. They just go, just take him.
Yeah.
It just kind of becomes that.
All right. I mean, we'll see. Obviously, if we win this weekend, then he can't be hired for a couple weeks. So maybe they get ants in their pants and go get somebody else. But not a lot of great options left at this point, I guess. Minter, I think, was one of the last remaining really good picks.
He was. Yeah, you're definitely getting down at this point. So Stefanski's off the board, and Harbaugh's off the board, and so the prime candidates are gone now. So he is the brightest of the candidates seemingly out there of what we have left. Sala gone now too. So it's all the guys we thought were going to get jobs again, got jobs again, and now you're picking through the second parts of it as far as a team if you're still looking for a head coach.
Well, I did see that Harbaugh hasn't signed the contract yet. Did you hear about this?
No, I didn't.
Apparently, he wants it in writing in the contract that he reports only to the owner. And right now there's this thing where he reports to the GM, and he's like, no, I'm not reporting to that guy. I want to report directly to Mara. And
it's such a mess,
little hesitant.
Brendan. It's such a mess. You kick Joe Shane out, right? Like, why keep Shane if you're bringing in Harbaugh when you know he wants to admit the control he wants to admit? It doesn't make any sense to me. Instead, you're going to force, let's find a happy middle ground here on this. Like, look, buy in on the Harbaugh experience and go whole hog if that's what you want to do, or don't. You know, the split the difference crap just doesn't make any sense to me for why they would want to take that approach, nor why you looked at Joe Shane and you're like,
yeah, I don't get it. Honestly, the last GM they had before Shane, who was the Panthers guy, I think did a better job than Shane has.
I agree. Yeah, and they hated him there, Gettleman. I mean, and Gettleman's
Gettleman,
awful,
there
but
we go.
I don't see what is it changed. I mean, you drafted Neighbors, which was a good pick, but the kid out of Penn State did nothing this year. You already had 2 edges on that roster. You could have probably put something like an offensive line help for maybe that quarterback you were going to draft just kind of sounded, they just kind of like, well, I guess we'll draft Jackson. I mean, just draft him. They didn't, they're like what Raiders are going to do with Mendoza. It wasn't like it was well thought out, just kind of like, oh yeah, I guess we'll draft him.
Yeah.
And
he'll be out of the league in a couple years with a million concussions anyway.
Oh, he will. He plays completely reckless. He's not, and he's like hard to get a quarterback midstream like this one, especially this is the issue with forcing a guy to play fast like that. All these mobile quarterbacks then lean into their mobility and lean into running, and then they get bashed, and then they get battered, and they get broken. Anthony Richardson had this happen too. It's like, this is what happens when you don't let him just sit and develop because you're so got to get him out there. Like, what was Jackson going to do last year for that Giants team, Brendan, right? What was he going to do for that team with that talent?
Yeah.
Nobody was going to get it. It's like, just let him sit, let him develop. What's the freaking rush? Got to know what we got. Got to know what we got.
Well, Daboll was probably trying to save his job too.
That too. Yeah. Sable and Jabil definitely was trying to save his job on that. But that's again, back to now, that's also not intelligent what's driving your process, right? And that's where it as an owner, you need to be aware of that. And you and I talked about this with Daboll. I said the very same thing Daboll was going to do with that. He'll start out with Russ and try to make it like, I'm going to try to make it work with Russ, but he's always side-eyeing Dart, and hopefully to side-eye Dart. The problem is they had to go to Dart too early, Brendan, because remember with Dart, he came in and gave him a couple games where they're like, ooh. So imagine if they had gone through Russ through the whole year and then darted him out at the end on the last 3 or 4 games, the plan would have worked where they would have, I can keep my job because I got you enough excitement titillated off the last of this performance, but you played him early, and then he had to play that wild, reckless, abandoned game throughout the whole year and got broken multiple times over from it, as will happen with his way and the way he plays the game, the way he probably has to play the game, quite frankly, to find effectiveness at the quarterback position.
Right. All right. So yeah, Jesse Minter off the market, and one of the last appealing job opportunities off the market. I mean, Buffalo's good, but other than that, it's not great out there right now.
God knows what Buffalo's going to do on.
And with Buffalo, it looks like you got to deal with kind of a whole owner. Can we say that now?
Yeah, another owner just doesn't seem to be that was a bad press conference the other day from that Buffalo owner, and that was a unnecessary. And he's trying to do damage control for his GM, but again, like if you're to the point of having to do damage control, canary in the coal mine, maybe there, Brendan, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe you shouldn't have kept your GM if you got to be up here trying to explain why. And that decision was, and then you're like, no, it was the coach's decision to draft this wide receiver. It's like, well, does the coach have power? Does the GM have power? Like, that's the point of having the GM, is that if he knows better than the coach, he can overrule him if he doesn't want that guy. It was an awful presser, and just it's Buffalo Bills are going to regret not moving off of Bean.
Yeah. It's one of those. It just doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't you want a fresh start? I don't know. Have you seen Buffalo's drafts the last 3 years? They're terrible.
It's like 5 years. No, 2 Pro Bowlers in 5 years, Brendan. 2 Pro Bowlers in 5 years.
I think Cole Bishop might be their best pick in the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, 100%. And not on top of how badly they've drafted, Brendan. They're not going to have a lot of money to spend free agency wise. They're not a cash rich organization. I get that part, but that you don't make a trade deadline deal, that they didn't go make a Shaheed deal for a 3rd round pick. I mean, in retrospect, that looks ineptitude from a general manager standpoint to me.
Oh yeah.
Jacoby Myers is out there. You could have gone him as well. There were quality receivers out there. Your receiving core desperately needed help. You didn't address it. You knew Keon Coleman by that point was a bust, right? So you walked into this year with like, maybe Keon this year, he'll figure it out, and then you knew that halfway in the year that wasn't happening. But then you just stood on your hands and you're just like, no, we don't want to be aggressive with a team in a Super Bowl window this year with no Chiefs team, with no Ravens team, with no Bengals team that's challenging you in the least. This is the year you don't want to try with your division wide open. This is the year you don't want to try to do that. 2 years he did this, Brendan. Didn't do it last year either. Not last year at the deadline, not this year at the deadline. And it held him back. Because Brendan, if I asked you and I said, look, if they made an equivalent for a Rashid Shaheed trade last year with that Chiefs team, and they made a Rashid Shaheed trade this year, or just that kind of player in both the 2 years, do they get to the Super Bowl in one of these last 2 years if they do that?
They get there, at least. Yeah. I don't know if they beat the Eagles last year, but they get there. You're right.
They get there.
Yeah. And, well, not our problem, right?
Not our problem. Mm-hmm. Someone else's monkey, someone else's circus.
Mm-hmm. Adis, thank you for the $1.99. Did you guys see the video about Coach Mike? You're going to have to be more specific than that. I've seen a lot of videos about Coach Mike, but I don't know what this refers to. Do you know?
Did you see the video about Coach Mike? No, I didn't.
Mm. I mean, maybe I did see it and I just didn't know, but yeah, you're gonna have to be a little more specific there, Eddie. Sorry.
Let me see if he's got it. The video on Instagram, the hype video. Is that what you're talking about? I did see the hype video yesterday. That was awesome.
Okay, no, I didn't. I have not seen that yet, but sounds cool.
Well, did you see the one where he's talking? They posted the video, Brendan, of him talking to the team in the off season, and they were talking, and he's up in front, and they got the screen in the background. He's in the meeting room, and he's like, "Picture this, gentlemen. It's the conference championship," and da 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 da. And
I saw that. Okay.
Yeah, no, that was a cool video. That was awesome, man. And how about him?
Mm-hmm.
Little psychic in Mike, huh? He predicted the Shaheed kick return earlier the year in Atlanta, and predicting conference championship. If it's rainy and wet this week, when the weather was not reported to be rainy and wet, by the way, I'll totally be in on, and he might see the future here.
Maybe. Peter Go Hawks, thank you for the $99. Did I hear this right? 41 points on 50 snaps. Well, some of those points were on special teams, but yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you're that dominant, right?
100%. Yeah, that's all it takes. And it's what this team's been like this year, where they've been very hyper productive without needing a tremendous amount of snaps offensively to end up putting up the points they put up. That's how they set the points record this year. It's just, it comes up in bunches with this team.
Mm-hmm. Peter Go Hawks, thank you for the $1.99. Pattern, loss, close win, blowout, 38-17 over Lambs.
Let's go, Peter. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, again, I'll say it. There is a pathway for this team to win by blowout. Like, I don't think the Rams are going to blow us out. I think that doesn't add up in my head. The Rams may win, but when you look at the way this defense is playing right now, when you look at the way the offense is playing the last few games, I don't see them blowing us out. Certainly they can win, but I can see the pathway for the Seahawks winning by blowout.
Yeah, I could definitely see it as being a possibility, Peter, for sure. And I agree with Brendan. I don't see it for the Rams on the road, but yeah, if we can get on top of them and you just get the momentum rolling in the right direction, we've certainly shown a variety of teams doesn't matter who you are, we can roll you up if we've got everything motoring, especially all three phases of the football team cooking.
Industry Worth, thank you for the $1.99. Rumors are swirling the Raiders really want Kubiak.
I'd get it there. I mean, what else are they picking through other than that? And thank you, Industry Worth. Who's the guy?
McDermott, right? Like, you could go get McDermott. He is a good coach. Like, if
I don't know if he's stars super bright right now. I think people are going to look at that and say, you couldn't get to the Super Bowl with Josh Allen. Like, how good is your defense? And your defense sucked through a lot of that time. So
it was good until this year. This was the year where it broke, but previous years the defense was good. And I mean, he was there for 9 years. He did do a lot to establish some legitimacy there. If you're a team like the Raiders that just kind of wants to get their feet underneath them, I could see it. It's kind of the same thing as hiring McCarthy. You just want someone who you know is going to be competent. And I mean, the Raiders really cannot afford another complete swing and a miss here. I would get it. There's no swinging and missing with McDermott or McCarthy. You could swing and miss with Kubiak. He could end up being a disaster.
Yeah, it's a possibility, I guess. There, I just would look at it with that as just and look, they're picking through these options. There's not a lot of great options here, so it is what it is, at this point. But boy, I'd be hesitant to McDermott from my perspective on it, because I go, I don't know on that one.
Yeah, for a team that is picking at the top of the draft every year, they have a shocking lack of blue chip talent. Like you take a look at like the Falcons and all the talent they have. They got some great pieces there. And then you look at the Raiders and it's like, you got Jean-T, you've got Bowers, and that's it.
Yeah, they've missed on a lot of guys through the years and where they've drafted the top. And they're not a team that does a lot of trading in the first round and gathering assets. And, Max Crosby is going to be the interesting thing to see if they finally decide to do this, to shift this a little bit. I have to think they're going to move in this offseason one way or the other.
Right.
But they've got a lot of work to do, man. That is a cupboard that's maybe as bare as any place in football. There's maybe a spot that can match it, but that is as bare as it gets right now, talent-wise.
Howard Schultz believes the Raiders are choosing between Kubiak and Davis Webb, the Broncos. What is he, quarterback coach?
I think that's right.
Yeah. So maybe if the Broncos lose this weekend and the Seahawks win, they're just going to go with Webb because, hey, he's there. We can take him now.
Oh, it's going to be hard to build that defensive staff if you got to wait till after the Super Bowl to build a defensive staff with Coops, to your point, right? He might be able to bring the offensive staff with him, but what are you doing defensively wise there? Who are you grabbing at that point?
Right. And maybe at that point he would say no to the Cardinals, and then we get Kubiak back against all odds.
There you go. There you go. Man can dream.
Okay. Let's see here. Holy Hand Grenade, thank you for the $2. Jesse Minter to Ravens. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Seems like a good hire to me. It made sense. That felt like a Ravens hire.
Feels like a Ravens hire. And he's got some history with the organization, right, with Mike there. And so some connection to understanding the personnel. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Richard Stewardson, thank you for the £2 or €2. I'm not sure which one there, but there's no message here. But thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate you, man.
And Poncho Honcho, thank you for the $2. Jeff Halfley could be your brother, Brando.
Maybe. I was looking at a picture of him. It's possible there. It's possible.
Yeah, kind of.
There's a little bit maybe there.
Yeah. You like that hire, by the way? How do you feel about that one?
No, I don't. I don't think that.
I think it's okay.
No, it's okay. It's fine. It's milquetoast. It's run of the mill. It's not an exciting hire to me. It's not a dynamic hire to me. But maybe it'll work. The thing with this too is I just think this is part of the ridiculousness of all these teams turning coaches over in this cycle. Just not a lot of great candidates out there in this cycle. And so to be chomping at the bit to move on for a team like Atlanta to go off of Raheem Morris, for instance, maybe it'll work to Stefanski, maybe, but it just does feel like to me, these teams are just moving on for the sake of moving on rather than they've got a really great candidate in mind that they want to replace the guy with.
I am a big Stefanski fan, so I like that one. I like that one.
I'm not anti it. That's not maybe the best example, but it's just that, he won 4 games at the end of the year. He's in his second year. What are we doing? It's like, what are we trying to get from these coaches? And like, if they don't get it done by year 2, then I'm out. It's like, what are you doing? He didn't inherit a juggernaut there. He didn't inherit a vision winner. You had to get the thing rebuilt through. So I don't understand it a little bit. I think teams are just getting a little bit too touchy and jumpy, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that when they made that trade, when they traded their first round pick, they kind of made their peace with the fact that either we make the playoffs or people are going to get fired, period. So I kind of get it, but they shouldn't have made the trade, of course. But
yeah, you don't make the trade, you don't make that decision. Like if you're in year 5 of the guy, Brendan, I can understand taking that track, right, with a coach, or year 4 with a coach. But isn't that kind of unfair for a year 2 of a guy to say that you don't get in the playoffs in year 2 of this, and you didn't inherit a team that was a perennial playoff team? Like that's more of an owner, wishing more than it is actually tangibly. You have reason to believe should be the case.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree, but at the same time, there's a lot of talent on that Falcons team. They should not have had a losing record this year, so I get the frustration.
Yeah, I can certainly get the frustration with it too.
Crap division too. That should have been an easy division win.
Yeah, they should have gone through and taken it. I mean, it's bottom line where their talent is at. They probably should have, done enough. I will say the offensive line's been weakening ever so over the last few years, and losing Drew Dolmans and a spot here, a spot there. You lose your right tackle for the year. You lose your quarterback for the year that you had intended to start all these games. Maybe that's a little bit of a thing you take into account too, right? But they didn't, and so is what it is.
All right. So real quick here before we start talking about this upcoming Rams game, let's give a shout out to the sponsor of the show, Sleeper. Can you run the people through the general facts about Sleeper while I set up here?
100%. Sleeper is your number 1 sports app running in this game. It's got all the rest of the other ones beat. You got more selections, more options, more picks to go through than you're going to find at these other spots. You got boosting items like you see here with Brendan on his Cooper Cup boosted item here. A lot of stuff there to kind of cook up your ticket just right. And when you use our code, either SBN for Brennan or Nest, we're having a code off here. Use either of our 2 codes and they will match you up to 100% of your first deposit up to $100. But wait, there's more, because you get a free 20, no deposit needed. Just put $20, just put a login and create it, and they'll put $20 into your account. So $120 from me to you through me or Brendan. Terms and conditions do apply. Please see their site for details.
Yes. And this week I've got Cooper Kupp over 31 yards. Feels like a revenge game for him, maybe. There's no way he's going to get. And we used him a lot against the Niners. So it seems like in the postseason, we really want to feature him a little bit. So I'm feeling it for Cooper Kupp. I also got K9 with an anytime touchdown. How does he not get an anytime touchdown in this game with no Charbonnet? I also got Mevis. I can't remember his first name, but the Rams kicker, I got him over on 1.5 field goals. So that's 2 field goals. I think the Rams are going to put up some points. They're going to be kicking some field goals. So I got Mevis over 1.5. And I also got another pick for the other conference championship game. I got Drake May with the under on 227 passing yards. I don't think New England's going to be passing that much, because I don't think Denver is going to be able to really score all that much to threaten them. So those are my picks. What do you think?
Love them. Good to go. My stamp of approval.
All right. So remember, use the promo code SBN or NEST. Either way, you get a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. And go have some fun with sports this year, everybody. All right. So let me take this down and let's get back to this. Okay. So we got to talk about this upcoming game against the Rams. Do you want to start with the Rams offense or the defense?
Oh, let's start with the defense for the Rams and our offense first up here.
Okay.
So we've got the Rams defense is one where certainly some vulnerabilities here as we go through some of the numbers here. They're 14th in rushing EPA per play, so they've been middle of the road, helped out by Landman and Poona Ford this year, and getting a little bit better at stopping the run. Teams are passing on the Rams, the 9th highest rate in the NFL. A lot of teams have to play from behind on this team this year, which is where that accounts for. They are 5th in pressure rate. They allow the 6th least most amount of yards on average separation. So they're not necessarily allowing a lot of separation in how they cover it up. I think the big part of that is the dropping of a lot of guys into space, Brendan, and that they drop the 7 into space by often a lot. So less separation you're going to have on routes. They are 13th in time to pressure rate, so 5th in pressure rate, good pressure rate, and then they're middle of the road in how long it takes for that pressure rate to get home. 10th in pass EPA, so solid, middle of the road-ish and stopping the runs, a little bit better than middle of the road, barely on the stopping the pass. 29th in blitz rate, so they're not going to blitz you. They're going to run the front four. They're going to run games up there with twists, stunts, loops, that type of thing there in order to get home. They are 16th in allowed yak in the league, so middle of the road there. 26th in stack box rate. This is an important one. 26th in stack box rate. Much like the Niners, they're not going to stack the box. You're going to get your essentially 7 men down there by and large for the most part, neutral boxes, that type of thing. And then they're going to be 5th in light box rate to that point of things. So you can count on the light box. You can anticipate it from a Kubiak play calling standpoint. It is going to be like that with them every week. They just don't operate outside of that very often at all. 9th in rush percentage inside on this team and 14th in rush percentage outside. So teams are kind of attacking them as far as the rushing attack goes, both inside and outside on this Rams team. It's not merely we're going to get in those attacks. And this comes down to them running that 3-4. We run a light box, but we run it with nickel. So it's 4-man fronts. Rams run their light box. They run it with a base 3-4, especially when you're 12 personnel, 2 tight ends. So that's then going to mean they're going to have more of those bodies to close up some of those gaps to the inside, the A and the B gap, which then has teams now trying to press a little bit more to get to the outside on them and utilize that method.
Right. And one thing to note is that the Rams defense was, I think, maybe best in the league in the first half or so of the season, maybe the first 10, 11 games. And then after that, they fell off a cliff. So some of these numbers are going to be a little bit, I think, misleading, because a lot of their good results were front loaded in the early part of the season. Do you think anything happened with them specifically that caused them to fall off a cliff?
Not necessarily. There's nothing I can point to as an individual item or marker. It's not like giving up big plays. It's not that the running game. I think the running game got a little bit more effective as the year went on. Teams could find more room there. But I think that this is just as much of anything of just, you had some easier scheduled elements to this Rams team, I think, earlier on in the year, first off. And I think as well, just The lack of secondary, especially secondary and linebacker talent and covering, quite frankly. I mean, Akilio Witherspoon was supposed to be their number one cornerback. This is a guy that we gave away for like a 7th-round pick 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Emmanuel Forbes is out there, and Washington gave him away. You know, I know from a Rams standpoint, they're like, oh, we've got these guys that are just so great, and these teams couldn't see how good they were. That's not how it works. You know, teams aren't going to let go of guys that are quality. There's an issue to their game. And Forbes has given them some good play, but recently Forbes has not given him, I think, as good a play as he did at the start of the year. And so I think it's a combination with all that stuff. When you're rocking Akilio Witherspoon and Forbes out there as well on the outside, Brendan, you're talking about two guys that do not want to tackle.
Right.
I mean, you saw Forbes get turned into a freaking, he got squished last week. I don't know if it was DeAndre Swift or Monungai, but he might be playing the game because of the concussion. The guy just ran him over.
Yeah.
So I think it's more of that, wouldn't you say? I mean, I look at that secondary, and there's nobody that really scares me out there in the secondary from a coverage standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, they got good players. I don't know if they have anybody great. Cam Curl's good. Cameron Kitchens is good. But there's nothing overly special there. Maybe Quentin Lake would be the closest thing to something that's kind of special back there.
Let me ask you this. If the Rams could, would every one of your secondary starters replace every one of their secondary starters?
You would think so. Yeah, probably. Maybe they'd rather have Kitchens than Kobe. That's the only one I can even consider.
Maybe. Ram fans don't talk great about Kitchens. He's got ball skills, but they'll get after him too for some of the plays that blows.
Right. So when you look at the Bears game this last week, because that was the first time in a couple months the Rams defense really did anything impressive. What do you think the Bears did? What was the mistake that they made in not being able to pile up more points?
Same issue first off out the gate that we had in the first game. And that is getting away from the run. So I have a light box. I know a couple of things for certainty, and especially to the numbers we're showing here at the 5th highest light box range. I know you're dropping 7 into coverage, and I know I can attack you in running the football. So I don't know why we in the first game, knowing that information, did what we did. I don't know why the Bears did, and I'd be interested to hear if you feel the same way. I felt like the Bears in this game, right out the gate, I got a couple problems with their offensive attack, Brendan. Right out the gate, my main issue comes into this on, you didn't stay committed enough to running the ball, in my opinion. I think you got way too pass happy in this game. Did you feel the same way a little bit with that?
You're talking about the Bears game specifically?
Yeah, the Bears offense specifically.
Yeah, I would have run the ball a little bit more, especially with how low scoring that game was and with the weather. Felt a little panicky because they went down 7-0 early, and then they kind of freaked out a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. I did feel like that was the case. The secondary part is that Ben Johnson comes from with Goff at the Lions operating within the pocket. And he's done a very good job of getting on-script stuff for Caleb, and then Caleb intermixing that with the off-script stuff. I felt that there was too much of trying to have him working from within the script of the pocket, and as much because that's not necessarily Caleb's strength right now in his game. And then number 2, you could see that the receivers were having a hard time generating separation. When they went to cut, you were getting that pitter-patter step thing that you get on ice or you get on slippery conditions, where I can't just go, bump, 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 put the foot down in and make the hard cut and don't lose any speed. Instead, it was run, pat, bump, bump, bump. And that allowed the defenders to stay with the receivers and not have as much separation that you were throwing to those receivers. And so you've got him, rather than getting more of Caleb out on the move, rather than more of a utilization of Caleb's legs, which is going to be something that Sam's got to utilize this game. Because the Rams are not a team that's going to put a spy on Sam, obviously. It's a pass rush that's going to get out of control at times to try to get back to Sam, to try to create that pressure. And when they leave their gap, he's got to step up and go take those easy yards where he can get it. And I did feel like on top of all this, a lack of getting Caleb on the move consistently, a lack of staying with the running game, asking Caleb to operate too much within the pocket. And then the fourth factor being is that you didn't use Caleb's legs and let him run a couple of times, or just be in his ear and be like, Caleb, on this one, I want you to stand back, wait 2 beats in the pocket, look for the open hole, climb it, and go take it. And like that last play on the interception that he threw, he had a lane to step up in the pocket to go get some yards on the ground. He did not have to throw that ball and throw basically a prayer to DJ Moore on that play. And what was he doing? Attacking again into the teeth of the defense. You can't do that. And that's another thing I think the Bears did in this game, Brendan, to my eyes. Just a 5th item here. Too much trying to push the ball down the field into the heart of the defense. That we saw in the first matchup. That's not going to work. And maybe this is where the first matchup just gives us this crystallized, immaculate understanding of what you can't do going up against this Rams team. You kind of made all those major mistakes in that first matchup to kind of go, okay, let's not do that again.
Yeah, like you look at that second matchup, I know Darnold didn't play a great game or anything, but both of his interceptions, he was not trying to push the ball down the field. They were just, he got tricked.
Yeah, he got tricked. And that's, and those you can put up with to a degree. I mean, I go back more to the play calls maybe on that one than anything else in those moments. Darnold's, certainly didn't help things with those two throws, but I think that to your point, go back to the first matchup and it is him trying to push the ball down the field at times. And instead of just, trying to play a little bit safer and a little bit under control. And that's where Darnold's grown in his game, I think. And he's really improved over the back half of the schedule in being able to limit down those really bad turnovers that were coming about from specific circumstances. Oftentimes late in the play, oftentimes him trying to do too much, oftentimes him trying to push the ball down the field when he just needs to sometimes take a little bit of the small L.
Yeah, and earlier in the year, it was a little easier to get away with that. He could take those chances, have them come up bad, and they could still win the game. But now you're in the postseason, the ball's a little more important. One thing that I've repeated over and over and over this year is turnovers are not that big of a deal, but I do think we are now kind of in a different place. It's the playoffs. You're playing this Rams team that has dominated the turnover battle against you. Turnovers become a little bit of a bigger deal now.
I think it's too just as well because of this team, isn't it, Brendan? It's because of this Seahawks team and how they operate. I mean, I asked you this last week, and you took a moment to think about it. But I said, do you believe what Cloud was saying a couple of days ago on 710 that if Darnold doesn't turn the ball over in the playoffs, the Seattle Seahawks are going to win the Super Bowl? And you were kind of gave it a moment, but you're like, yeah, I kind of think that's probably the truth. And what do we have this last week? No turnovers, and you absolutely rout the San Francisco 49ers. Now, I don't think you're going to rout necessarily the Rams by no turnovers, but I think it does illustrate how, yes, it's really important to the point you just made about playoff football and protecting the ball. But to me, it's most especially important because of the type of team you built here. They can run the ball, they can play great defense, they can play great special teams, and can be high functional passing the offense when they need to at certain times in the game. Not maybe 4 quarters, but certain times in the game, every throw in the book can be made. Darnold can come back on a 2nd and 20 and whip that 20-yarder out on the sideline to Cooper Kupp, where I think a lot of guys that you might put more of this sort of game manager kind of side on what they're asking quarterbacks to do are more limited in their arm strength, right? Like a Brock Purdy, for instance, can't make every throw in the game. I don't think he could make that rip throw 20 yards out to Cooper Kupp, for instance. I don't think that that's a throw Brock's got in his bag. So you can operate by this way by the team that you've put together here because they've shown they can win by that method. And so all the much more to lean into it from Sam's perspective. And it really especially comes down to late in the play, trying to do too much, throw back across your body, avoid those kind of situations. Interceptions and you hitting your back foot, letting it rip, and the guy undercut a route because they disguise the coverage beautifully. That's, like you say, those things might happen. It's not, price of doing business a little bit. But the stuff that you can't control and you have a little bit of a beat to think about, that's the stuff that Sam's concentrated on and rectified, and I think will continue to be really good this week.
What would McCorkle do?
That's right. That's right.
All right. Let's jump over to the Rams offense now, unless you had something else you wanted to add about this Rams defense.
Nope.
All right. So Rams offense. This is where things get really interesting to me, but let's take a look at what we got here.
So Rams offense first, right out the gate, the pressure rate that is allowed is 2nd overall. So they're the 2nd best pass protecting team in football, according to these advanced stats. Their team rushing EPA is 5th. So right out the gate, some challenging stats to deal with where they're very efficient at running the ball. And then they are very good about keeping the pressure off their back. And now, because you run the ball, helps to create less pressure. The third item that helps this stat along is their top 10 in getting the ball out of their hand quickly when it comes to Stafford. 2.8 seconds, that's 10th in the NFL. So run the ball efficiently, keep you from generating pressure. Partly from keeping you the pressure is getting the ball out of my quarterback's hands quick, not giving you the opportunity to arrive to create that pressure. They're having the 9th highest amount in blitz rate against them. Seattle is 2nd. This has been a blitz rate for the Rams that's gone a little bit back. They were a little closer to us through the early part of the year, and I couldn't believe it, Brendan, how many people were blitzing Stafford early on in the season. Maybe a little bit of why they had a little bit more of that early success early on in the year versus the back half, quite frankly, a little bit. But 9th highest blitz rate against them. You saw last week the Bears dialed up a lot of blitzes with man-based coverage concepts. Worked good for them in the first half until it didn't, until they did a little too much. And running casino blitzes on Stafford is, don't get what you're doing there on that one, Brendan. 32nd in average target separation. This is an important one for me. The worst in the NFL. You've got great lockdown corners on the outside. So Brandon, why do you want to run man coverage? Why do you want to lean in that? I got the dogs that can do it. And I got a receiving core that even in the best of times has had hard times at creating separation. And even right now, I think with the Devontae and Puka, not necessarily at 100%. Maybe it's 92% between the two of them, right? Maybe Puka's 89% and Devontae's 85%, but they're slightly diminished. And that's with that target separation not being the greatest. I'm going to plaster up on those guys. I'm going to make you show me that you can create separation on your route running.
Absolutely.
That's what I want to see.
Love it.
First in play action. Tough part here where they're going to get you to buy in with those linebackers on a couple steps in, and then they're going to throw it right over the top of your head sometimes on those in-breaking routes, a lot like the Niners will do at times, how you defend against that and staying clean against the run. And this is a really tough part to deal with because you have your light box. So those linebackers have to be very aggressive in getting downhill to deal with the run if it's on the table as a possibility because of the fact that you don't have the bodies down there to deal with it if you don't. Maybe a game where the Seattle looks at potentially some 3-4 looks mixed in there a little bit to kind of keep the Rams off guard with this a little bit, but they haven't this year so far, Brendan, so I'm probably expecting they're not going to in this game. 23rd in light box rate usage, so teams neither really, for the most part, do much of the light box or the stack box rate with them. They get a lot of neutral boxes, do the Rams. And then there is the third in rush inside percentage in the NFL, 32nd in rushes to the outside. So they are a team that's going to hammer and get downhill on you. They invested in a couple years ago. I know Jonah Jackson moved on, but they've gotten the kid, the other guy there from the Lions got injured a couple of years ago. He's Phil Dotson. Dotson's been a really good guy that's filled in for them. And then Avila, they drafted in the second round a couple of years ago, has been a good left guard for them, especially in the run blocking game. These two, they're guys that are people movers in there essentially. So they like to get downhill, like to attack A and B gaps. That's where they tend to live. You can kind of hyper concentrate to the inside. That's the good news of this, Brendan, is that with a 36% outside rate. And when I look at this, Brendan, the two numbers that just stand out to me a little bit with this are the lack of separation and then the lack of the running outside. Because I'm a big proponent of this. Whenever I got a team that's to such an extreme degree on something they're doing from a tendency standpoint, that they're 32nd in the league at that, that's where I kind of start to focus in and go, boy, that's where I can really get after you now. From a standpoint of even just predictability, right? Like prior to the snap, I can lean into those inside runs because I know how infrequent you're going to actually try to get to the outside. Can my edges start to collapse down a little bit more to the inside on the rushing attack because they don't have to anticipate as much you're going to challenge them on the edges? I wonder a little bit about this with that extreme discrepancy between those two.
Yeah, very, very notable. So I got kind of a big question here, and I think I already know how you're going to answer it, but give me a minute to talk this through. So during the regular season, so 17 games, Stafford was the best quarterback in the league against the blitz. When blitzed, his QB rating was like 121.2, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when he was not blitzed, it was like 99.2, which is okay. It's pretty good. It's decent. But big difference between Stafford getting blitzed, Stafford not getting blitzed. The second game, the week 16 game against the Rams, Seahawks, they blitzed at a crazy high rate the first three quarters, backfired tremendously, got destroyed. They stopped blitzing in the fourth quarter. Things immediately got better, and everything was great. But here's the thing, and small sample sizes abound, but it is worth noting, so far through two playoff games, Stafford has been an unmitigated disaster against the blitz, against two teams that are very bad at blitzing. The Panthers and Bears are among the worst teams in the league at blitzing. They have like a bottom 5 success rate on their blitzes. And both teams made Stafford miserable when they blitzed him. He's got like 4 turnover-worthy plays in 28 snaps against the blitz this postseason. Seattle, the best team in the league blitzing in terms of their success rate this year. So here's the question. Are you blitzing Matt Stafford this time?
Not to the degree that I blitzed him in the second matchup to the high degree. No. And I think that there's really a specificity that I would provide for when you blitz and how you blitz Matt Stafford. Because when I watched the Bears last week, what I would do is say that they did what I would call shock blitzes. And what that means is that you have your blitzes where a guy comes down, let's say he's your slot cornerback, Brendan, right? And he's in press coverage. And then he wants to blitz, and what he's trying to do is he's trying to time coming down to being a blitzer off the outside shoulder of the edge right before the snap of the football, right? So he lines up first he's in press. Quarterback's going through all of his machinations. Then when he thinks the quarterback is done calling out all of his protections and whatnot, now I slide in right before the snap, and ideally, I'm getting to the shoulder of that defensive end right as the snap happens in order to basically kind of hit the ground running on my blitz, right? Well, what the Bears did is the Bears did shock blitzes. So it would be a will linebacker in a will linebacker position off ball. The Rams would come up, and what Rams do is that with Stafford, he'll do the quick snap stuff, right? So he comes up to the line and almost like they don't even hike it. He just walks up and they just snap it. And so what teams would do then, and what Bears did great last week with Dennis Allen, is they got the shock snap. They would bring that blitz off the back of it with like a Will or one of their guys. And what you get the benefit of that is that, okay, what you're doing Stafford-wise, you're coming up and getting the quick snap, and you're not allowing us defensively to make all our communications and get all of our guys aligned into the right spots. But then with that as well, your protections aren't adjusted. So now whatever your protection call was coming up to the line of scrimmage there is what it is. And so now when I send that linebacker like that Will there, or let's say I send it off on a corner blitz there, you don't have the protections in place. And now I can have a good chance of arriving. So I feel like they've been specifically really as much doing it kind of that way. And that later on in the game, when you saw the Bears show their hand on one of the blitzes, I don't know if you saw the play that just drove me crazy. The Puka's just like, I swear he's got black arts or something to make defenses forget about him. I don't get it, Brendan, how he's able to do this. But they bring the blitz from this side. Puka goes in motion. Do you remember this play? And they're showing the shot from the back as it happens. He goes over here, and now he's completely uncovered. Blitz comes here, and then he comes off here, and he's wide open for a first down completion. I think it was like a 3rd down 2 or something like that.
So yeah, you can't not off the top of my head, but I believe it happened.
Yeah, the bottom line is you can't show your hand on the blitz to Stafford, and you've got to have it set up that when he catches you, you call that crap off. You've got to, if you're trying to do the thing I just talked about where you try to like late slide in there to catch him right at the time of the snap, and then he catches you and he stands back and taps his helmet or whatever okay, we call it off. We go back to a base set on this defensively and get back into something else because he's just caught us with our pants down. Because if he catches you the pants down, he's going to shred you. He catches that blitz coming and he knows it's coming and he'll have an attack plan for it. It's that you have to surprise him with it. And I think the only way to do that is kind of that shock style blitz.
Mm-hmm. So it's very odd then, and it's kind of ironic that 2 terrible blitzing teams in the Panthers and Bears have been very successful doing it these last 2 weeks. I'm going to it is like his PFF grade, Stafford's PFF grade when blitzed in the postseason has been like 26 or something, untenable.
Yeah. I would struggle with it to say that I think it's, I think I would struggle to say that I think it's a rule of thumb. The other part of this too is that the environments outdoors haven't been the greatest, with the Bears game and with Carolina as well, a little bit of a wet environment there. So maybe some of that plays a bit of a factor in some of this, but I wouldn't want to, I'd much rather be taking it off the back of this year's data rather than the last 2 games of data from Mike McDonald, especially that second game where you did blitz. And like you said on your point of this, the second that you went away from the blitz, your pressure rates went up and getting the Rams off the field went up.
Yeah.
So kind of an important part of a draw from that second game.
Right. But I feel like that carrot's getting dangled, right? That blitz like crazy carrot's getting dangled in front. You got to be careful.
You got to be careful. And it is going to be there a little bit. And I think you got to interwork it a bit. I don't think you just go all base here like you did with the Niners last week. That's not going to be the plan either. You got to mix some stuff up there because if you let Stafford have static looks over and over again, he's also going to be able to have the answers for you. That's part of what makes him a great quarterback. And so you got to mix some stuff up. You just don't go high volume with it.
Right. And I have to believe that the turnover luck runs out at some point. If you force some turnover worthy plays, you're coming away with the ball. Like he has gotten insanely lucky these last couple weeks.
So we're getting him into more of the high volume places the way to do it. And the Bears were able to do this last week. Some of this is McVay's fatal flaw. He doesn't have a lot of fatal flaws. Might only have kind of really only one really. But the fatal flaw is that he will get away from the running attack. And I think he had the same problem the Bears did in the last game in that he didn't stay with the run as much as he should have. He got a little too pass happy. That's where now when you get Stafford from 30 passing attempts to 40 passing attempts, I all but guarantee you're getting at least 2 turnover-worthy plays in there. Do you make the interceptions or not? Well, you got to catch the ball. But there's going to be 2 turnover-worthy plays if you can get them into 40 attempts. So stop the run, turn them one-dimensional. McVay will want to lean into that way anyway. And then you'll get to the point where you get a couple turnovers, you play clean the other side. That becomes a bit of a potential determining factor on this game, Brendan, if you can shift it in that way.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. Okay, we got some more donations to get through here. We got Ram Slam 88 with the $2 Canadian. Did Jerry's Super Bowl ring comment change owner vibes?
I didn't see the Jerry comment on Super?
I think he said something like, my goal is to win more Super Bowls than any other owner. And he's got 3 and Kraft has 6. So he's like, I got to get 4 more before I die. And it's like, I don't think that would have changed owner vibes. I don't think so. Like, I think everybody else will just look at that and say, have fun with that and then move on.
Yeah, it's Jerry. Jerry is about Jerry. And Jerry's ego is one that you see as somebody through this long of a lens through so many decades, and you see a flaw on display like it is with Jerry on this. Your flaw had you kick Jimmy Johnson out of the room. Your flaw cost you probably at least 1, maybe 2 more Super Bowls that you would have had otherwise. And that was your ego that did it. And rather than now 30, 40 years down the line, him recognizing that, he's thinking about, how can I make my star even brighter for historical purposes, which again comes all back to, again, the ego of things with Jerry. And that's, again, some people don't learn their lessons, and he hasn't. And it's why the Cowboys will never win another Super Bowl in his lifetime.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I feel like he doesn't even care. He feels like he's won the Super Bowl because the team makes more money than any other team.
Yeah, I don't think it's...
I think he pretends to care. I don't think he actually cares at all.
I agree. I think, well, to your point, don't you think what are you more proud of, Jerry, the Super Bowl titles or the fact that you've turned the Cowboys into a $15 billion organization?
Yeah.
I think he'd say the $15 billion is more impressive to him.
Oh, yeah. I know he pretends to care, but I'm convinced that he does not. To him, he wins the Super Bowl every year. He makes the billions of dollars.
Hold on. All right, Mile High, I give you a chance, man. I'm putting you in timeout. I can't do the comments anymore, brother.
Okay.
Jesus.
All right. M. Jordan, thank you for the $4.99. If we get Crosby, an emergency roundtable needs to be called for Jesse's reaction. Also, is it harder for a quarterback without a wristband in loud environments?
I did notice with Stafford, it was interesting that he didn't have the wristband on his arm. And I didn't know what to make of that for why he wouldn't, because there's a really good reason for the fact you have it on. And I think with the Rams, they've had a hard time at times, if I'm not mistaken, with the play clock sometimes winding down, and they sometimes burn timeouts with it getting too close, which if you got to replay, if you got to repeat the whole play, right? This is the whole thing back with the Russell days and not wearing the thing. It's like they say the whole play in your ear, then you have to replay the whole ear. It's like can take you another 7-8 seconds to get the whole play out, especially these long ass dictionary kind of plays that you got on point. Right. And, so I do wonder about that with Stafford as to why he's not. It does make it harder because of the fact that, number one, it's a loud environment. So you need the extra time just to make sure you can communicate. It's X, Y, B, banana, 2, right, zone, indicator, cross, rip. Second play, if I go to my head, is going to be B, double cross, right, loop, X, A, bop, 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 right? Okay. So if I just have the signal caller in my head go 13, and I can just go to 13 and the signal caller doesn't have to say through the whole play to me, now I go to 13 on my deal and I go X, Y, 2, blah, 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 blah. So it's a more efficient process to go to that in loud environments, especially if you have to double communicate it because they can't hear you on it. I would estimate this week he'll be, I don't know. I was shocked to see Stafford didn't have it on his deal though. That was kind of crazy. And yeah, Jesse said he would quit football. He'd quit covering the Rams or 49ers if he was joking. If we got Max Crosby, because I said, I think we're going to make a run at him again this.
It would feel a little unfair with how good this defense was if they get Crosby. Like, I will admit that's like, I mean, I hate to use this as an example because it didn't work out. It's like when the Golden State Warriors added DeMarcus Cousins in the 2019 offseason when they had already won 2 titles in a row. Now, it didn't work out because Kevin Durant got hurt more than anything else, but that was that moment where it was like, what's the point of even watching basketball this year?
Yeah, I agree. No, it would be a little bit, like that. And NFL is different, of course, because the injuries are so much of a bigger aspect that could come into play. Or you build a team like that, so it's like a super team, and things can come out to be. But Crosby would take us over the top in such an incredible way if you can get him. If you can add a rusher like that off the edge, it cements the one somewhat, not even a weakness, just something that's not maybe a super strength on this team like other spots. And good luck, good luck going against that team, especially if Crosby can stay healthy.
Mm-hmm. Industry Worth, thank you for the $1.99. Will Kupp have an interception or fumble in this game?
Nope. He's going to play. He's going to have a revenge game against the Rams. He's been coming along, led us in catches and yards last week. Thank you, Industry Worth, for the don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's coming along, man. I think he's going to be featured quite a bit. I think you're going to be a lot of third and shorts in this game, and it's going to be a lot of third and cup in this game, I think.
Very possibly. And, one thing about this offense is they've learned their lesson, right? They stopped using Milrow after week 5 against Tampa. They stopped having the trick plays with Cooper Kupp trying to throw the ball after the first one went so badly. Like, we don't need to do that. We don't need to be doing that kind of stuff. We can win straight up offensively.
That's right. 100%. It's just be exactly the brand of football you've created through this whole back of the schedule in every game. Just be true to yourself.
Is there really no moderator active right now? The guy came back immediately.
I know. I got him. It's just a different account.
Yeah.
He's committed for a Bronco fan, man. I tell you what. It speaks to how good Seattle's doing, and we're getting all these people in here that are not even from Ram or 49ers in recent weeks.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
Yeah, the moderator stuff can be tough sometimes. Hard to figure out who to trust.
Yeah, well, and sometimes you get too many mods, you get people over legislative, and then it can get a little bit. So I tend to I do not like booting people. I really hesitate doing it. It's something that just, I don't like it at all, but what are you going to do? Some people just can't stop themselves.
No, I love it. I do it all the time. I love it. I love the power.
It is a lot of power.
Yeah. All right. Taker, $5. Thank you. The Rams barely escaped with a W in Carolina and Chicago. Should we even be sweating this game at all? Well, I see what you're saying. The thing is, football is a game of matchups, and I think the Rams do have matchup advantages on us. I think that the way they play defense is tough for Darnold. And I think that their power rushing attack, where they run on the inside, is a pretty decent way to counter our run defense, where we like to defend from nickel. So it's not a great matchup, but I go back to the Super Bowl last year, right? The Super Bowl last year, Eagles, Chiefs, one thing that I said, and I think you kind of echoed this before that Super Bowl, was that the Eagles had a much better roster, but the Chiefs were a good matchup for the Eagles. Well, we all saw what happened in that game. Sometimes the better roster is so much more powerful, it can overcome the matchup. But doesn't always happen. So I think that people are correct to take this game very seriously, even though I think that Rams team has not played well lately.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it is a game I'm sweating because of the stylistic matchup of things. And Brendan just, I think, articulated well where I would be with some of this stuff and how it sort of sets up. Their ability to generate pressure with the front four, the stunt loop games that can give sometimes our offensive line issues, that they're going to drop those guys into space and coverage, and they can create the pressure while dropping all the bodies in space is tough, and how they can attack you run the ball versus your defense. On top of the fact that this is a divisional opponent that is very well aware of you, and that you're not going to be able to sort of trick them, and they're not going to be able to trick you as much. So I think to me, the Chicago game was a game where that weather equalized things. It was a great equalizer, and that the talent disparity is more a little bit in Rams' favor. Bears got a pretty good team, but that weather kind of sort of took things down a little bit. And with Carolina, that's just been a tough matchup for them as well. It was earlier in the year when they lost to them. And that this is a game where, like Brendan just said, it's a game of styles and matchups, and this opponent might not be a good matchup for you, but this opponent you might be set up well to, even if this opponent's got a little bit more wins than that opponent. And it can kind of just go a little bit that way. I think with the Rams, they're a tough matchup for us, both being a good team and stylistically how they want to play football. They will throw the ball with the short passing attack with Stafford. They will run the ball in the A and the B gap, defensively 7 to coverage, front 4. Those are things that are not problematic, but aren't as easy as, let's say, those teams that I think do things like, hey, we're going to run a lot of man-based concepts and stack the box up on you, to that side of it. Or offensively, we want to take deep shots down the field, and we don't want to, like, those kind of things, I think are, where we'd be a little bit happier area of playing and dealing with.
Right. And, I mean, the thing is, the Rams struggling goes back further than just the postseason, right? They lost to the Falcons. They were actually in a little bit of a dogfight with the Cardinals until the Cardinals had that 60-yard play wiped off the board. And then the Rams kind of ran away with the game from that point. But like, the Rams have not looked great for a little while now. So I do think there is some legitimate, you can make some legitimate points that they are not the same team that they were earlier in the year. But again, matchups are, I think the matchups here are notable. I think there are some things the Rams can do that will give us a harder time than, say, the Niners. I think the Niners, the way they run the ball to the outside, their outside zone run game plays exactly into how Seattle likes to defend the run.
Agreed. Yeah, and that carryover is true. You don't just become the best version of yourself because you want to be in the conference championship. You're building yourself up like you build a building. And the Rams, to your point on the back half of the schedule, it's not been bad. This is the place of nuance you got to get to where it's like, it's just not as good. It's not as much, really running hot like it was early in the year. And that's carried through into the playoffs. And it's likely to still carry into this game. Doesn't mean that they're not capable of beating us, but you're not necessarily getting the best version of the Rams. And I think the Rams are getting the best version of the Seattle Seahawks.
Right. Industry Worth, thank you for the $1.99. Rams fans not worried about the Patriots. Agree?
I don't think any of us are worried about either of the two teams coming out the AFC if we win this Industry Worth in respect of this is the Super Bowl right here. This is the true Super Bowl. And are you going to still have to win whoever comes out of the AFC and that's still going to be a challenge? Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. But are we going to be heavy favorites against whoever we go against? Like probably like 6-point favorites, and the Rams the same way coming out of the AFC? Yeah, probably. So I think you got a lot of reason if you've gone through this NFC and you've gone through the freaking gauntlet of the NFC West to get there. I think you feel pretty strongly that you're going to take down what's a weaker AFC this year. It's more of just industry where the AFC's weaker, the NFC's stronger this year. It goes back and forth year in and year out, but that is the way it is right now.
I'll be honest. I don't feel like I have a great sense for what the Patriots are this year. Like, I know they're obviously a good team because they've won a lot of games, but I don't feel like I have a great sense of what their identity is. So I'm going to have to do some research into them if we play them in the Super Bowl.
Well, to your point, what do they do great? Like, I can speak to what we do really great in the back half.
Drake May is great at throwing the ball deep. I think he might be the best deep ball thrower in the league. And that's the main thing that jumps out to me.
Yeah, and you can team gets as far, you'll find some strengths to it, but I think with us we can go to a variety of different strengths. We've great ground game, great defense, great at generating pass rush, great at stopping the run, great at getting turnovers. I think there's a lot of things that you could kind of put in that side of it with us versus kind of maybe the one or two things you could maybe find with them.
Mm-hmm. M. Jordan, thank you for the $4.99. Can't wait for Sam to have 20 completions, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, and the goalpost moves again. Is it really about the turnovers, or is it just he isn't Pat Mahomes? SMH. Well, I know I don't want to hear about turnovers with Darnold anymore after watching some of these other quarterbacks these last couple of weeks. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think the turnover thing has definitely been overstated. It's what people glom onto, partly because they can't glom onto other things within his game, right? Now you can't go to average yard per attempt, can't go to quarterback rating, can't go to the yards thrown or the touchdowns thrown the last few years. So it's the one last thing you got that you can cling to if you're an anti-Sam kind of guy. So I think just come down to, for whatever reason, he's been a guy that's drawn a lot of negative opinion onto him that cannot be changed. I've seen a lot of quarterbacks that have negative opinions, but those opinions can be changed when you get the better play and the improved play at different stops. For whatever reason with him, the die was cast, and he could just never upend that outlook of who he was and what he could be. And that's unfortunate, but this is also, I think, a little bit of an indicator of why we've got some fans out there and their outlook towards the quarterback position is a little broken. And the way that they see the position's broken and how they see its impact in the sport is broken. And he's a representation of that to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, you look at some of these other quarterbacks, like look at the game Herbert played, look at the game CJ Stroud has played, like throwing these games away. And meanwhile, Darnold hasn't turned the ball over he had a bye week, but 3 weeks now. And again, he had 19 turnover-worthy plays during the season and 20 turnovers. There's some bad luck in there.
Absolutely, there is. And you're right. He's the only quarterback this last round of this playoffs that didn't have a turnover, right? He's the only guy that didn't do that. He played a clean game. And that's part, again, that carry over from the regular season and why I've been hammering this so much of blueprint, because you're winning every game by that blueprint of him. You can see within Sam from that Rams game, I got to clean this up. There are things I can control within this that I've got to take control over. I'm costing my team here. I got a shining example of me costing my team individually, and this cannot be the case on this team. So he started to rectify this and work on this in his game. And you could see it play by play in some of those moments. Like early in the year, he might have tried to force that. He kind of took the sack there. Early in the year, he might have forced that down the field, took the check down over here. It's been building up. And that's that carryover that comes from the regular season to the postseason, Brendan. And that's why I have so much confidence it will continue, because he's tangibly taken control of this to rectify the situation. It's not just happened by luck or happenstance, but because he's actually trying to make these decisions to make sure he can avoid it.
Yes, very true. And I hope it continues on, because if it does, I think we're probably winning the Super Bowl.
Amen.
Ram Slam, thank you for the $2 Canadian. Playoff Stafford iffy plus Rams iffy since loss to us. I mean, honestly, it goes back further than that, right? They lost to the Panthers, and maybe it's not a good matchup. That's still an embarrassing loss as far as I'm concerned. That Panthers team is bad.
A couple interceptions from in that game too.
Yeah. And the Lions, they were close with the Lions, right? That was what, 41-34. So their defense gave up a lot in that game. I don't know. It's not the same Rams team from earlier this year.
Yeah. It's a slightly reduced version. It's not a bad version, but it is, again, was your team's kind of riding high and at its best and playing at home and well rested. This is a Rams team that's not playing at its best. Probably a little tired, probably a little beaten up from the pathway that it's taken them to get here, and not at their best. And you do feel like that combination of factors does carry into this game, and will maybe be as much a differentiating factor as anything else.
Daniel Bailey, thank you for the $1.99, but I would recommend not giving the guy attention like this. I think that's, what he's here for. So I would recommend that, maybe you just not give him attention in a super chat like this. But thank you, Daniel.
Appreciate you, Daniel. And he just knows what's coming to his Bronco team in a couple weeks if they get this win. That's really what it is. So he just knows the pain that he's going to be in, having to see another Seahawks Super Bowl victory on his Broncos back. And I get it. That'd probably have me a little trolling too.
Yeah. By the way, what do you think happens in that AFC Championship game while we're here?
I think the New England Patriots get it done. The thing with Nix is that Nix isn't necessarily a great quarterback, so Stidham doesn't have to necessarily go hit this high water mark to clear what Nix has done as far as ultimately performative wise, but they so rely on Nix's legs. It's almost like a lesser Lamar Jackson Ravens thing early in Lamar's career.
Kinda.
They need that those legs to get him free, to get the first downs, to keep drives going, to be a little bit of that X factor to their offense. And Stidham doesn't have anything in the vicinity of what Nix brings to the table on that. And I just think that that's going to be enough of a factor to this where Vrabel will dial up some inventive stuff defensively to confuse the hell out of Stidham, and they'll do more than enough, I think, offensively to go get the points. I just can't see Stidham getting this done.
I agree. Corey, thank you for the $1.99. Was it just me, or did Jake seem terrified of us? There's a lot to be scared of right now.
Yeah, there is a lot to be scared of. And I think that Jake's a smart enough football mind to where even as he speaks confidently about where he sees his team and this being a win for his team with the Rams, he's got it down to being a 1-point win. And I think that he certainly, if they lose this game, would come back off of it. And the very thing I just said about those factors being into play, a tired team, playing on the road, a little bit beat up, not at your best this year throughout the whole back half of the schedule, not just recently with you being a little bit tired, maybe going on the road in the playoffs, that all of those factors ended up kind of adding up, and that you ended up kind of having to face the music in this particular game in a way you didn't have to face the music in the other games. And if I was in his position as an analyst looking at my team, that's got to be creeping in the back of my mind. There's no way it can't be. This is beyond just a sample size of 2 or 3 games the Rams kind of playing in this sort of place. It is through that back half of the schedule.
Right. Retired Young and Traveling, thank you for the $9.99. F them trolls, don't need mod. We like to play with our food. Brando is the hardest working pod in the game. 12-hour lives, LFG Hawks. I mean, the thing is, when the trolls come in, a lot of people in the chat can't help but engage with them, and then the chat gets completely derailed, and they're not talking about the stream. They're not talking about the game anymore. It's like, it's not that simple, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's not that simple. And I'm a guy that I like to believe that I can get people over from, hey, you're in this troll mode. I can get you over the place where you'll want to talk football, because you'll realize how much funner it is to talk football than just sitting there talking trash. And a lot of times I'm able to get people over to that side of it. But some people will bury their feet in. They just want to come in and watch the world burn, like the Batman quote goes.
Yeah. But thank you for the $9.99 retired.
Yeah, appreciate you retired, and very kind of you to say that as well. I don't know, Brendan works pretty hard too on his side.
Yeah, not as much streaming, but I do a lot of videos.
You do the uploads though.
Daniel Bailey, thank you for the $1.99. Cracked the armor week 16. Let's finish the job.
Let's do it. Got the chink in the armor. Got the little dink. Yeah, right there. Let's just break right through that little hole. We're already broken in a little bit there, Daniel.
Yeah, there are some problems with this Rams team that did not exist in the first half of the year, I think. And there is a part of me that was kind of like, how is this Rams defense so good? They don't have a lot of blue chip talent on that defense that makes this make sense. So I was kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, and in the last couple months, it feels like it has a little bit.
Yeah, I think that they've got a solid crew. There's just not a lot of difference makers out there, and especially to the secondary and linebacker core and coverage. Linebacker core can, I think, defend the run pretty well, and they can get after you in power in the passer. There's some things they do good, but there's nothing I don't think they do great. And they're not a great tackling team. They're not a great coverage team. They're not a great blitzing team. There's no point of that with it. They just kind of try to get by a little bit. I mean, ideally, what they'd like is to get up ahead of you, and then that pass rush can cook it up, and they can drop 7 in coverage and put you in that predicament. And that's where they want to be. But if they're not in that place, then game gets a lot tougher for them to get it done.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm feeling pretty good, man. I am feeling pretty good. I think we can finish this job, but it's going to take high level of play on both sides of the ball.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful hat there, Daniel.
Ram Slam, thank you for the $2 Canadian. Panthers/Bears broke the Rams playbook / beat them. I think there's a little bit of a blueprint there you can take away from those games.
I would offer on top there, Ram Slam. I think the Falcons did this as well. I think the Falcons kind of started some of the look of this with the drawing to more of the man-based coverage concepts, especially to Puka. A little bit of the flexing and the blitzing a little bit. They kind of started that, and those teams definitely built upon that. And maybe something Mike can continue to add on.
Yeah, and that's another thing with this game. I'm really hoping that Woolen plays every snap, because we've been kind of sort of rotating him and Job a little bit. So Woolen isn't on the field for every snap, but Woolen's so locked in right now. He's even playing the run really well. He's tackling great. So I'm hoping that Woolen just gets to go at it for 100% of the snaps this week.
I'd be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
Mm-hmm. So that would be another thing that I'm thinking about for this one. Peter Go Hawks, thank you for the $1.99. Congrats to John Schneider, Executive of the Year. Indeed, on
well done,
2
John.
Publications.
Well done, John. Well earned on his part. Nobody saw this year coming. How many pundits had us in 4th place? And you knocked so many moves out the park. So it's like one thing, you knock moves out the park and everybody lauds the moves on the surface of it. It's another thing when everybody kind of bangs on your moves and then all those moves are knocked out of the park down the line. And that just tremendously impressive from John. Congrats to him. So well earned. Probably should have gotten it before this time. I think this is his first time he's actually won it.
Correct.
But definitely well earned.
Mm-hmm. Taker, thank you for the $5. Rams can't win another title. Stafford's poor drunk wife can't handle another topple off the stage. Huh? Whoa, where'd you go, honey? Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. That was pretty funny.
That was pretty funny. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they do get the loss here. What happens with the Rams going in the future on that and what Stafford decides to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to retire after he might win MVP. I think he's the favorite to win MVP, but I'm not sure. I haven't kept up.
I think he's got to be the guy that probably wins it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to retire coming off that season, but if there was ever a season where it would make sense to do it, it would be this one.
But it's now, I think these quarterbacks get to this age, man. It's year by year, and you go, boy, do we got a better chance next year with the roster? And do we think and maybe not? Kind of. I'm hearing that he's the generally deciding probably to do so, but it's a year by year decision with a quarterback of this age.
Ram Slam 88, thank you for the $2 Canadian again. No more wide open middle on D this game, please. I wouldn't think so.
I wouldn't think so either. And a lot of the zone coverage stuff where you're just not got guys in the middle of the field there to defend that stuff. So man-based coverage concepts, sliding the zones to the middle. We did some of this with Brock the past 2 weeks and pulling the zone to the middle. Now we did that because we didn't think Brock could throw outside the numbers. I think this team's got a little bit more fear of Stafford throwing outside the numbers and that they won't necessarily do that as much. But it'd be great if you can find a way to take away some of that stuff because that's where a lot of their easiest passes lie, the easiest completions they get are just into the middle of that field there. And if you can take that away, that'd be great.
Retired Young and Traveling, thank you for the $9.99 on my side. Appreciate you too, Brendan. Great numbers guy. I appreciate that.
Go. Retired, man. Appreciate you.
All right. Very nice. Appreciate that. Okay. So I think the only thing left is to just lay it down on the line with this one. I went with Seahawks 27, Rams 20 in my Bleacher Report video that I posted this morning. So I'm going to stick with that. I could see a more decisive win for sure, but I'm going to stick with 27-20.
And I'm going to go with a 24-20 I think both teams run really conservative early on in this game, kind of just bleeding down a quick clock first half, and then things get really rolling here, I think, into the third quarter. But I'm going to have the Hawks at 24-20. Feel confident, like you said as well. Definitely a pathway here. We can get a more comfortable win. But these playoff games do tend to run down pretty tight and down to the end of the line, but I think we get it done.
Okay. All right. So that is going to be it for this show, guys. We went 2.5 hours plus. Don't forget, guys, to check out the sponsor of the show, Sleeper. Go download that app and use the promo code SBN or NEST to get a deposit match on your first deposit up to $100. So definitely give them a shot as well. But I guess we're just going to get out of here. And next time you see us together, this team is either going to be headed to the Super Bowl or headed to the offseason. One or the other.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I will be coming out next week from Mobile, Alabama. So we'll be doing these. I'll be doing remote next week, Brendan, regardless of whatever does happen. But let's go get this win, man. Let's keep this season going. Seahawks, you've done so much to get yourself in this position. Complete the process. Just be who you are, and you're going to go get this dub.
I believe so, too. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. We had about 500 people in here at one point. Still got over 400. So everyone have a great rest of your week. Brandon, thank you for doing this with me today.
Appreciate you. Thank you as well.
And all right, guys, it's here. Feels like the Super Bowl this weekend. I know it's not. Kind of feels like it is. So as a fan, let's do the only thing that we can do. Let's get behind the guys as much as possible. If you're going to the game, get involved. Make sure you are participating, because if you're there, you really are. And if you're not, then all you can do is sit there on Sunday evening and say, Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.